October 8th, 2019 work session of the Maywood Mayor and Council to order at 7:35 p.m.
Would everyone please rise and join me in saluting our nation's flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On January 3rd, 2019, adequate notice of this meeting, pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Act, has been furnished by inclusion thereof in the annual schedule of meetings for 2019, which has been posted on the bulletin boards of Borough Hall, filed in the Borough Clerk, faxed to our towns, the records, the community news newspaper, and distributed to all persons, if any, requesting copies of the same pursuant to said act. In case of an emergency or a fire alarm, you must evacuate the building by using any of the exit doors in the room. They are immediately to my right and the double doors in the rear of the room. Occupants must exit the building by using the staircase and not the elevator. This meeting is being recorded by both audio and video and may be rebroadcasted.
Roll call.
On roll call, Mayor Gray.
Here.
Council members Bennett.
Here.
Bolin.
Here.
Ullman.
Here.
Trevino.
Here.
Lindenau.
Present.
Garofalo.
Present.
Borough Attorney Brian Ironman.
Here.
Borough Administrator Roberta Stone is absent. Borough Clerk Barbara DeSoto is here. We have a quorum.
Okay. I don't know what the big deal is. Why aren't you guys here? I forgot. So it's not a big thing going on? Motions. We got promotions. That's right. So, we do resolution first? Yep. There we go.
Resolution 183-19, resolution approving a promotion within the Maywood Police Department in the Borough of Maywood, Bergen County, New Jersey, for Darrell Worrell for lieutenant.
Now, please come on up. Commissioner, you want me to gather?
You're welcome.
Ready to go. Afterwards.
Can I have a first? Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
All right, what we're going to do right now is, who do you want holding the file? Put your left hand on the Bible. Like you. Darrell, would you please repeat after me? I, Darrell Worrell.
I, Darrell Worrell,
Do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States and in this state,
in the United States and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
and the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties of the office of lieutenant,
all the duties of the office of lieutenant,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Resolution 184-19, resolution approving a promotion within the Maywood Police Department in the Borough of Maywood, Bergen County, New Jersey, for Jason Lyvan. Can I have a first?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
On roll call, Bennett?
Yes.
Boland?
Yes.
Almond?
Yes.
Trevino?
Yes.
Lindenau?
Yes.
Garafalo?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Oh, you okay?
All ready to go? Yeah. I, Jason Leyva,
I, Jason Lyman,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established
and the government established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties of the office of sergeant
all the duties of the office of sergeant,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
help me God.
Oh, that's the thing. I knew it was wrong. Yeah, I wasn't thinking of it. Nope.
Just barely getting
So I just want to say a few things about the council. I'd like to thank Councilman Ball, who's our liaison to the municipal department.
You got it. What's that?
I'd just like to say a few things about our council. I'd like to thank Councilman Ball, who is our liaison to the police department, the rest of the council members, and Adrian, Mayor Borough, for making these promotions possible and being very open-minded and seeing to the need of our police department. They've been very helpful to us each and every day. So I'd like to thank them for making it possible.
Okay, while you guys are clearing out, we're just going to take a few minutes break so we can don our stigma-free shirts. Thank you guys for coming, and listen, every one of you I hope to see here at some point, getting promotions, moving up the ladder. Thank you for everything you do. We really appreciate it. The community is grateful to you guys. So, I'll take a motion to take a 2-minute break. Second. All in favor? All right, we're in favor. All in favor? And with that, we have where am I? Proclamation.
Given that whole equipment and material. You're going to get a free one.
Okay, we're back in the regular order. I can wait a few minutes, so if you want to finish out the conversation, that's fine.
I'm not going to get started.
Okay.
I don't do tests right now.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, thank you for doing it already. I appreciate that. Thanks for service. All right, this is a proclamation. It reads, whereas mental health is part of overall health, and whereas 1 in 5 adults experiences a mental health problem in any given year, and whereas approximately 1/2 of chronic mental illness begins by the age of 14 and 3/4 by the age of 24. And whereas suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States and the 2nd leading cause among young adults, and 90% of people who die by suicide have underlying mental illness. And whereas long delays, sometimes decades, often occur between the time symptoms first appear and when individuals get help. And whereas early identification and treatment can make the difference in successful management of mental illness and recovery. And whereas it is important to maintain mental health and learn the symptoms of mental illness in order to get help when it is needed. And whereas every citizen and community can make a difference in helping end the silence and stigma that for too long have surrounded mental illness and discouraged people from getting help. And whereas public education and civic activities can encourage mental health and help improve the lives of individuals and families affected by mental illness. Now therefore be it resolved, I, Adrian J. Fairbrae, Mayor of the Borough of Maywood, do hereby proclaim October 7th through October 13th as Mental Illness Awareness Week in Maywood, New Jersey, to shine a light on mental illness and fight stigma, provide support, educate the public, and advocate for equal care. And be it further resolved that October 8th, 2019 is hereby proclaimed as Maywood Stigma-Free Day. All right. So I believe we have some students first. Yeah. You guys want to come up and speak? All right, so the floor is yours. You guys use the microphone. Yeah, you guys can turn the microphone towards you. Use the base. Use the base. Take your watch and you train us.
Okay. It'll be fine. Hello, I'm Abigail Dennis, the MAS Student Council President, and I'll be speaking on behalf of MAS and the Student Council. Hello, I'm Andrea Yashinovsky, and I am Student Council Vice President. Hello, I'm Thomas Garrig, I'm the Student Council Treasurer. Hello, I'm Sean Healy, I'm the Student Council Secretary.
Hello, I'm Yusuf Salam. I'm the 8th grade class president.
Maywood and our schools will always promote being stigma-free. Our students should always have a shoulder to lean on and someone to talk to. Mental illness is a serious issue, and we should do our best to prevent any suicides. Losing someone to a mental illness is something that should never happen. As a community, we should always help put a smile on someone's face, because we never know the difference that smile could make. So, we thank you, our town council, for helping our schools be stigma-free. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Do you want to take pictures with your teacher?
Yeah, we got
Did you have lemons in the background? Wait, what is it?
Yeah. High class.
I'd order on the Okay. Like Superman Yeah. Great job.
Oh,
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you, guys. Great job.
Great job. Perfect. I think. Thank you. Come on.
Well, we gotta.
You know what? The commissioner makes a good point. We understand that Lieutenant World probably wants to go celebrate with his family, so I think we're gonna, if the council has no problem, we're gonna go out of regular order of business and do the traffic study. We're all in favor of that? Okay. Yeah, okay. So, Lieutenant, if you wouldn't mind, we might have some questions as soon as the chief is ready. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sticking around.
oh, thank you.
So, as Chief, I'm sure you've heard that we have some questions regarding what some of the plan, some of the discussion that we had with regard to Spring Valley. So, you want to ask questions? You want to just fire in with your opinion? I mean, where are we with this?
So, basically, I just, want to know, the council's opinion on what the plans are, future plans for, West Spring Valley Avenue, from, what location to what location.
Obviously, the biggest and the most pressing issue that we have is the safety. Congestion is always a concern, but safety of people on that road, it's a speedway basically in the morning. Well, actually all day, but especially in the morning.
Right.
So I don't know I don't know if you watched the video, but some of the things, the discussion was maybe creating a different traffic pattern, whereby there would be 3 lanes instead of 4, and then perhaps bicycle lanes on either side. It's really all up in the air right now. But we are looking to mitigate any
So
hazards.
from what's point A and where's point B? From Paramus border, or in Paramus somewhere to the Hackensack border, or beyond it?
Well, obviously,
Or just like from Maywood Avenue to Spring Valley Avenue?
go ahead. What were some of the...
Yeah, I mean, I would love if we could link up with Hackensack and Paramus to do something jointly to do the roads together and do this road diet. But if we can't, I think it would probably have to be from Maywood Avenue to Spring Valley Road on West Spring Valley, which isn't, to me, really enough because you still have 4 lanes on the rest of the road. But
So, I mean, are you looking for bicycle lanes, or are you looking to reduce the lane width?
I'm looking at, well, we, I think the idea is whatever is going to be safest for the most amount of people, especially for pedestrians, but also obviously for people who are driving and bicyclists. People do ride their bikes. I don't know if the more I do, I sent you the article, Chief, on bike lanes and how protected bike lanes, especially with driveways. I don't know if it's the right thing to do there.
Yeah, so, in some of the preliminary research with bike lanes, the safest bike lanes, from my understanding and from what I've read, is to have a Dutch-style bike lanes, where, you have a sidewalk, and you have the bike lane, which is elevated to the sidewalk, but then the bike lane is curved to the motoring public.
Right.
So, we have inclement weather, 4 or 5 months out of the year. How are people going to, are we going to plow that roadway?
Right.
And then if we don't curb that road, how safe is it for pedestrians? And, as you know, if you drive up, let's take, for example, Route 208, the shoulder is full of debris all the time. So is the bike lane going to become the debris lane? So that's going to have to, be monitored as well. So, pedestrians get injured because they avoid debris on the road. That's from one of these studies that we've read. And then my other concern is that, some of these major cities have bicycle lanes, and they connect from A to B, and they go through the shopping districts, they go through the parks, and, and whatnot, but they have a pattern that they follow. Like, just putting a bike lane in on Spring Valley Avenue, there's no, in my mind, what is the purpose of it? To bring pedestrians to the Bergen Town Center?
But again, I think people are getting really hung up on the bike lane aspect of everything.
Well,
that's not the original purpose. The original purpose is to make this safer for pedestrians and slow cars down.
I think one of the discussions that was had, either last week or the week before, I'm not exactly sure, but was the presence, not necessarily to make, listen, whatever the situation is with bike lanes is one thing, but if they were there, it's not so much to have bicyclists, although that's a side benefit, but the thought, what I remember from the discussion, correct me if I'm wrong, was that the actual presence of those bike lanes might make people think, and I don't know if it's true or not, but to put something in people's minds that, hey, I better slow down to this bike lane here.
Narrowing lanes does make people slow down. You see it on Maywood Avenue. As you get further down south, it's hard to go 45 miles per hour on Maywood Avenue.
Now,
During the day.
one fear that I had was that, I don't know, and I guess the engineer will help us out with that, but I don't know what happens with the traffic. Like, does it flow freer, or is it more congested? And at that point, what I don't want to see is people making a left onto Coolidge or one of the side streets to cut through, to try and beat that traffic. And now we have a highway on
Paralleling the roadway, which
Yeah.
is also in this study too.
Okay.
Some of these things are looked at, people, after a few months, they realize, oh, I can go down this block, cut this, that's. But then let's say, you have traffic coming off Route 4, that's an artery to go to Bergen Town Center, so when they see the traffic, it blocks up by CVS there, the service road that goes through Bergen Town Center, they go down to Spring Valley Avenue, make the left and use the entrances off of, West Spring Valley Avenue.
Right.
Now, and I know, that Spring Valley Avenue from 1:30 p.m. So after the rush hour, 6:30 p.m. is basically the parking lot. So if we restrict traffic going eastbound on Maywood Avenue, now I won't be able to determine this, but maybe the engineer can or somebody that will be able to do a study on it. Is it going to back up traffic so much that it's backed up onto Route 4 now?
Well, that's all our question, you know,
Yeah,
everybody.
I think that's what the study would get at, but the idea behind, so again, this is just based on research that I've read, is the idea behind when you change it from 4 lanes to 3 lanes, you really don't affect flow of traffic a lot of times. It depends on obviously the way that the street is made, but because what's happening is the center lane becomes your turn lane. And so if your center lane is your turn lane and you're going to make a left into Bergen Town Center, you can see the traffic coming at you better than if you have 4 lanes and there's another car going left the other way. So you have to see through that other car. So because you're in the center lane now, you have a better line of sight for cars coming the other way, and so you're going to see less accidents from people turning left. So that's the idea behind it. I think the hard part is when you're coming from the other way and the people turning right into the Bergen Town Center. I'm not sure how we would design that part, because that needs to be a dedicated right turn only lane, and the straight lane would have to kind of swerve, which would slow people down.
I think one of the things that we discussed at a recent meeting was the desire for us to do a traffic study in order to determine whether the idea of having a road diet there would reduce the speed of people traveling that road. And the comment was we could certainly run a computer program which should give us a lot of data, but are we better served by actually going out and coning that area to do what we are considering doing in a real world experiment? And I think that one of the reasons we'd asked for you to come tonight was to get your opinion on whether coning that area is practical, if you could even do it with the available manpower.
I just think that
Could you talk into the mic, Chief?
putting up structures,
Get the mic, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. From the base.
so just, just in my mind, thinking about, putting up structures in the roadway, on the whole, drivers have, I think, enough stimuli going on inside their vehicle now with voice controls and text messages and cell phones, and and they're worried about getting from point A to point B. Adding additional obstructions in the roadway, I don't think that's a good idea, and I think it's a liability to us, because what's the purpose of us obstructing the roadway just to conduct a study when somebody could say, well, you could have done a computer simulation or something like that. In my mind, I'm just thinking, but I wouldn't feel comfortable coning off the roadway for a period of time,
Okay.
For that long of a stretch.
Yep. Well, how long generally would the study last? Right. Whether computer simulation or like a real live one, either way. To get the data. How long?
If it was live, I think you'd want to leave it for at least a week to get the full week's breadth of it. Plus, you would want to pick pointed days, say during the holiday season, to gather that information. As it relates to the study, what we would do is we would be counting cars during those peak rush hour periods, and also the periods again on those pointed days, to gather that information and then model each of those individual days through the system.
Now, I know that we have a considerable traffic data down there from other developments that got on the Borough side. And my limited understanding of the way a traffic study works is there's predictable patterns that motorists follow, the trip calculators. If we already have that, is it possible for us to use any of that data to give us a preliminary result without having people actually monitor the car directions?
Most definitely, we would open information from Paramus, if need be, and then gather information to the building department as it relates to any traffic studies. To look at
We had the complete streets, we had the whole But that was a few years ago.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
that would be the only thing, is we'd want to review how current it is. If it's more than a year old, it starts to become outdated, just because of people changing their traffic patterns.
The reason I'm bringing that up really is because, I mean, there's a cost associated.
Almost definitely.
Not with the computer program, that's relatively fixed. The physical person out there.
Exactly.
Recording those results.
Exactly, there is.
And correct me if I'm wrong, so if we have some available data, and we run that data through the model, and the model comes back saying there's no effect, or it's got a tremendous effect that we're looking for, could we then use that as a basis to decide whether we want to spend that additional money to have people out there? If it's as easy as I'm thinking it is with the computer model.
Yeah, we definitely could. Again, it would depend on how recent the data is. If the data is more than a year or two old, it becomes outdated again, just because people change their traffic patterns over time. And you would want the most current data so that it relates to the road system as it exists.
My thought is that this, while I understand where your mindset is at, it's pricey, but this is such a major undertaking. And what we decide is going to really affect that area. Now we're going to do a study. We have to do a live study. I mean, I'm sure they can input some of the stuff to save some time, and I'm sure Greg will cut us a break on some.
Most definitely we would. It's not. We're not looking to camp out there and do counts if we don't need to.
But at the end of the day, we have to really get some studies that are, if we're going to do it and go forward with it, that are as up to date as possible. I have another question. I mean, I know the council had discussed this, and we went back and forth. We kind of liked the idea, and then situations happened. But what are your thoughts about the traffic officer being in that area? If we had, I mean, I know we have the manpower.
Yeah, we would definitely have the traffic officer sign there for specific periods of time.
What's your thought on that reducing some of this problem?
I mean,
if it would, I don't know if it would.
If you as a driver were driving down the road and you saw a police car, doing radar on, let's just pick an arbitrary, on Passaic Street, every day, a cop's coming up, I'm going to slow down. So if we had a traffic officer there, at time frames, which we can use from the pedestrian speed signs that we put up, because they have data that we get right at headquarters, so we'll know when the prime times are. We could have officers out there, specifically the traffic officer, which, I want to implement once these two officers get off field training.
And now, with that, and, this whole council is concerned, with the safety, with that implemented, do you think, I mean, we'd only find out by actually doing it, but just that now we have here, do you think that would be a situation where we are making it safer,
well,
for lack of a better phrase?
That's our goal, is to preserve and keep the peace.
Yeah.
So that would be our goal, is to make it safer. That's why we have an officer there. Yeah.
What do you think the result would be?
Well, I can't.
I'm asking you speculative.
I'm sure that the speed would go down while the officer is there.
Yeah.
But
it goes back up.
It'll go back up.
But you said something before. Based on the data from those signs,
yeah,
you'll know the peak hours,
yes,
when that mostly
right,
the
east and west
speeding mostly happens.
Yes.
For lack of a better phrase again.
Right.
But so you'd be able to police it at that point.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, please.
Could you use the data from those signs, or is that not enough to create this traffic study?
What we would do is, and it isn't all manpower, is you've probably seen them before, the boxes at the side of the roadway, which have the tubes that go across.
Yep, right.
That's going to gather a lot of data, and that would require minimal manpower other than the person that sets that up, picks it up, and then downloads the data into the system. Where it becomes of interest is on some of the side streets, the entrance to the mall, Maywood Avenue and Spring Valley, where you have the turning movements in those areas. It's important to gather all of that information as to what movements everybody's making at that location, so that you can properly program the model to illustrate those turning movements. So those are where we'll really concentrate the people being present to address that traffic.
That's the study we're talking about conducting, that study, can that information also be used by the police department in conjunction with the signs, the information from there? Like, could they take some of that information? Let's say it comes back and it says, this isn't a good idea, or this is a good idea. Either way, whatever the information is, can it be used by the police department afterwards? So I guess my point is, we're all concerned about, I don't want to say throwing away, but we're concerned about throwing away money. But if we were to do that study and it said that this is not a good idea, but that information can then be used by the police department, so it wasn't a total waste.
I think the council would give you information as it relates to traffic movement and pedestrian movements on the roadway, so that the governing body and also the police department would understand how the roadway system is being utilized in the area. So there is value to it, whether or not you do the road diet or don't do the road diet at that location.
The meetings that are planned, there's 6 meetings. Would there be representation from the mayor and council at these meetings?
Yeah, there could be. We would definitely invite the council to be present. It would be potentially meetings with the police department also to review information, and the council would be invited to be present. The meetings would also include presentations before committees, whether it's during a mayor and council meeting or after a mayor, before some other time to present it. So those are the types of meetings that we were envisioning, and you would always be invited to.
Part of those.
Yeah, definitely. And then, Councilman, as I think you were discussing, as it relates to the bike lanes and the discussion of that, it's only an analysis. It doesn't mean that bike lanes are definitely going to be specified for these roadways and we're going to recommend them. We're going to gather the data, we'll relay it to the governing body, and then a decision can be made, and we'll provide some recommendations and opinions, and you could agree or disagree with them, and then we'll take that to note.
Okay. Let me ask you this: do we want to? We have a lot of information right now. Do we want to make a decision on whether or not we want to go forward, or do you with the study, or do you feel we need to think about it and maybe want to sleep on it and we'll talk about it at the next meeting? I mean, what do you guys think? Yeah, we're doing
$21,650.
Okay.
I mean, I think $21,650, while a lot of money, to taxpayers worth of money, it's maybe 3 actually. The fact that we could possibly save someone's life by doing this, since there have been multiple fatalities on this stretch of road, I think is important. Again, I don't think we're not promising anyone anything. I don't, from a bike lane standpoint, people have made this about bike lanes. It's about safety. It's about slowing cars down, and that was one possible solution. There are a lot of ways to slow cars down, and so I'm for this. I hope others will support it.
For it personally, I'm prepared to make the recommendation or vote for it right now, but certainly understanding wanting to wait till next meeting if other people had any hesitations or wanted to do more research.
Listen, I think at this point we got pretty much everything we're going to get. I don't think we're going to, we're not going to get any more information. The only thought I asked, in case anybody wanted to sleep on it, but, listen, we've been bouncing this around for 3 meetings now, so I think we pretty much have a good handle on what we want to do. I think everybody here knows what they want to do. One way or another, yay or nay, they probably have an idea. So,
Looking for a motion?
Yeah, you know what? I'll take a motion on. I'm looking for a motion that to do the study.
I'll make the motion that we authorize Bank of the Year to do the traffic study.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, roll call.
Bennett? Yes. Boland?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Trevino?
Yes.
Lindenau?
No.
Garofalo?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Just, can I make one mention about the study here, in the guide here? It says on the first page here, additional intersections based on feedback. They have listed 5 intersections that they'd like to do, the weekday, midday, and evening peak period studies. We'd also like to add in for 6 and 7, the Spring Valley Avenue at Edel and Spring Valley Avenue at Maywood Avenue intersection.
Absolutely. You okay with that, Bert?
Most definitely.
Thank you, Chief. Okay. Anybody else have any questions for the Chief and Lieutenant? All right, guys, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you for your input. Okay. All right, we have up for discussion our 2018 annual audit and 2019 best practices checklist, and we have our CFO, Charles Pucci, here. Do a little explanation, question and answer session here. Charles, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mayor. I asked the Borough Clerk to send you the actual copies of the best practices and the report of audit summary that I prepared for the 2018 audit. The best practices includes core competency questions for the municipality. There are 35 of them. I believe that you'll see the score that we scored was 38. So as far as the state is concerned, they are not withholding any state aid. I will tell you that on the 35 core competency questions, we had 100%. The other questions that they ask, some of them are scored, some of them are not. They relate to shared services and procurement, cybersecurity. In today's world, you know that we've been having a lot of towns that have been hit with cybersecurity issues, so that's become a hot topic for them. And then quite a few of unscored questions have to do with whether or not the Department of Community Affairs and Planning and Economic Development could come and assist you in any of the planned projects that you have. They are not scored, and there is also a section with regard to affordable housing. And you know, you're not finished with your affordable housing, so we have to respond in those ways. That's for you to review. If you have any questions specifically about the best practices part of it, I'm happy to answer those. It will have to be submitted by the end of this month. So the questions are here, if anyone has any questions about best practices at this point.
So it says our score is 38, but I don't see where we're scoring points and where we're not, unless I'm reading this wrong.
This is now gone to a internet-based system at the DCA. So you respond, you answer the questions, and they come back with the score.
So there's no PDF printout at the end?
This is the PDF printout that I was able to obtain from their system.
So is that what these numbers, I see like a number 1 next to some of these, is that what?
Yeah, that's the value of the question.
And then where there's just 0, that's one that didn't have, that's what you're talking about?
If you answered no, in other words, if you answered no, you got a 0. If you answered yes, you got a 1.
But it doesn't say if we answered yes or no?
No, it doesn't. We would have to, I can show it to you online, if you'd like to see it, but the response to the process is the scoring sheet.
How many
84.
How many screens?
84 questions.
How many screens is that? Like, would you be able to do a screenshot of all of it and then send it to us?
I can certainly try.
Yeah, because I don't think we're going to be with you anytime soon.
No, I'm happy to come back if you like. Yeah, we can try and do that screenshot and show it. Yeah, there are actually 84 questions that have to be answered.
Yeah.
I mean, rather than have you come here back and do that.
Okay, let me see if I can get that out of the system. It is the first time with the state that we are doing it this way. Before it was done.
You also can do a screenshot and then just scroll up and screenshot whatever's in there.
Okay, well, I'll actually go down there and see if I can figure out a way to print that part of it.
It could be more than 10 screenshots. It could be, depending on.
The fast system that they started 2 years ago still isn't fixed. So I would, we'll see, I'll do the best we can with regard to that. And then as far...
You know what, Chuck, if it gets really crazy, just take your phone and take a picture of the screen.
Screen, okay. Okay.
It's a little low tech, but it'll get you the same result.
Okay, so the annual audit was submitted. I believe that everybody got a copy of it. That audit is submitted on a regulatory basis of accounting. It is not a generally accepted accounting principles audit. It's based on New Jersey accounting. I'm happy to report that there is a clean opinion. That means we've complied with all material respects with regard to financial data and reporting for the Borough of Maywood. Just as a note, the asset to liability ratio is 3.26 to 1. That puts us in a very strong position as far as assets to liabilities. And in 2018, we had excess revenues over expenditures of $2,995,075.
Real quick, I don't want to keep asking questions every...
No, please stop me. It's better if you do it.
Where do we rank in Bergen County with that? I mean, towns similar in size.
I did not do that. I didn't even take a look. The current fund balance sheet ended 2018 with $7,017,176 in cash, and as you remember, during budget season, your fund balance was $4,800,483. So we're sitting very, very strong as far as finances concerning cash. The capital fund, the other major fund that's reported in the audit, the cash balance was $2,528,919, and the bonds and notes that were liabilities on that fund balance sheet were $11,666,832. As far as the debt analysis that's reported, our statutory debt limit is $48,423,585. Our outstanding debt is $13,519,819, which leaves us remaining borrowing power of $34,903,767. The important thing here is that we have 0.97 percentage of debt. Now we can go up to 3%, so we have a very low percentage of debt in Maywood, which is a good thing. Just reporting that the PERS and the PFRS payments that we made in 2018, the PFRS payment was $838,397, and the PERS payment was $227,011. The audit report also includes a section on federal grant programs and internal controls. The audit report states as follows: in our opinion, this is the opinion of the independent auditor, the Borough of Maywood complied in all material respects with the types of compliance requirements that could have a direct and material effect on each of the major federal programs for the year ended December 31, 2018. That's exactly the response we want from them. The audit of internal controls reported that we did not identify any deficiencies in internal controls over compliance to be a material weakness. So we've met all the material compliance requirements. In every audit, there is a section for management comments which deal with non-material items, and they are intended to improve your internal controls, and there are always improvements because each year stands on its own. Those comments are presented by the independent reporter and are listed on the following pages. You all have this, right? You all have it. Okay. I should have asked that first. So the ones with the asterisks are repeats. So what I'd like to do is just go through them with you. The corrective action plan on each one is a description of what was either the result or what we're planning to do. So you can stop me anytime you want to discuss any of these. So the first comment was there are old community development block grant and Bergen County open space grant receivables reported in the general capital fund. The corrective action is that these grant funds are administered by the borough with the borough engineer, and the borough will have to determine whether these grants are still viable in relation to the projects for which they were utilized. Once we have that information, the borough can then act to cancel the uncollected receivables. So we have grants receivable and grant funds that projects have been completed, but there's balances. Someone has to tell the finance department that they are no longer viable or that we're not utilizing those grants and funds anymore. Sometimes they last a long time because you may have projects that go over years in order to complete them.
Who would typically tell you that the project is completed, so it can either be billed or it can be paid?
Between the engineering administration is usually the group that does that. Remember, I'm sitting here as your accountant, so I'm accounting for the dollars that are there.
So so we have a corrective action here, which is that we're going to, so is somebody reaching out to the borough engineer then, who is right here, in their office to see about these grants?
We actually had a conversation before. It's, through the administration, you have to go through the projects and determine whether or not you can, because there's many options. You could continue along the initial project by expanding it a little bit. You can transfer it to another project. And there's many things that happen with regard to grant funds. You just have to get approval from the grantees.
So is
or the grantors, I'm sorry.
Is there a checklist that we go over with them, for each grant on like a month, like on a quarterly basis or something to look at?
No.
So we have a list of what grants are out there waiting for some other action?
Yes, the audit report provides you with a list of grants. I can certainly copy those specific pages and put them together for you if you like.
And it's very possible that a lot of them are situations, like you said, where the job started last year and then inclement weather came, and now we have to finish the year after, but it's still on the list because the job is finished. So it's not necessarily...
Right. These comments really relate to whether or not the projects are done, and the result of which is whether or not you have a balance or a receivable.
My point is, the auditor doesn't know when he looks at this whether or not those jobs are done or extended over another year because the weather didn't allow us to finish in 1 year. So for all the auditor knows...
No, he's responding to the fact that we've accounted for a balance or a receivable. He doesn't look at project status.
He doesn't look at project
status.
So then that's my point. So there might not even be a corrective action to be done on some of these, correct?
Well, if everything is done and we have let's say we have a small receivable, and one of those comments is going to come up later, and we have a small receivable. If the project is done and we've collected $95 of $100,000 that we were allotted, then what we would do is cancel the receivable. But we wouldn't cancel the receivable until we know that the project is done and it's closed.
I understand. Yes.
Follow?
Listen, there's probably like 8 asterisks, and what I don't want to do is spend 15 minutes on each asterisk. So let's go ahead.
I'll do it as quickly as I can, Mayor. I'm sorry. Okay, number 2, there is an amount recorded in the current fund as due from Bergen County related to ADA improvements of $56,000. If you remember, this was the program that we did for the handicapped ramps where we didn't have an actual capital ordinance. They were refunding us based upon the work that was done.
Yep.
Okay. So the grant funds are administered by the borough and borough engineer. They did the work. The borough will have to determine whether these grants are still viable in relation to the projects for which they were utilized. Once we have that, the information, the borough can act to cancel. So I don't know, and I'm sure Greg would know, whether or not all the handicap ramps were completed and whatnot. So that's the information that's got to get from administration, if you will, to finance.
Okay, you don't answer right now.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no. I could speak as it relates to all the grants that are open because we're aware of all the projects. The only ones that I'm aware of that are open is the Maywood Streetscape Phase 2, which is still under construction as we speak, and I'll go through that when I present my engineer's report. And then also the other one would be Gulf Avenue, which was just awarded and will be constructed in the upcoming months. The remainder of the grant applications that we've administered plans and projects for have been closed out through resolution by the governing body already. So I think everything can be addressed accordingly.
Get rid of a lot of these aspects.
Exactly.
Okay.
When we close these things out, that should be the ticket for the finance department to then close out the grant?
Correct, you'd have the resolution that states close the project out. It's all funds have been administered.
So that's where the...
And there could be, in all honesty, there could be a lag, because when you close it out, there still may be funding that's coming from the grantor, especially when you're dealing with the state. Sometimes it takes them months to get funds to us.
Okay.
Mr. Kuchar is correct in that with DOT, it could take, what you'll file that resolution that you received paperwork for, it will take approximately 3 months to get the remainder of your 25% of your funding back from.
But they should, but still, we should almost forward you the resolution, or you should see the resolution as this is going to be closed out as soon as the rest of the funding comes in from the state.
Right, and if we have that, then we can note that, but if we wouldn't close it out from a financial point of view, we wouldn't close it out unless we knew we got the receivable.
Right.
Okay, so it could go over year end.
Right.
Okay. Number 4, dedication by rider was not filed with Division of Government Services for claims reimbursement account, which was opened in 2014. The claims reimbursement account is a self-insurance fund program, which will require dedication by rider. I've already provided the resolution to the borough clerk, and I think you have it on for tonight. I will tell you that in the past, I don't normally write resolutions for you.
Okay.
So this time we did, just to make sure that we had it. Okay. Number 5, capital improvement fund authorizations greater than 5 years old have unfunded portions outstanding, creating cash deficits. Okay. So I'm going to read the corrective action plan first. Capital ordinance older than 5 years will be reviewed by bond counsel, which I've already done, and the CFO to determine appropriate funding requirements, which holds the least impact to the taxpayers of the borough. So they're speaking about how we fund ordinances. Generally speaking, to try to keep the interest low as we possibly can here, we don't fund capital ordinances until the project begins. Okay. We don't fund ahead of time. Yep. So you know what happens. Some projects get done really quickly, some projects lag, so there's a level of cash flow in that account that sits. So we use the float on that cash account in the capital fund to use that money for projects that we haven't borrowed, because we basically only borrow money once a year. When you do the accounting, if you haven't borrowed enough on a particular account and you spent more, it looks like a cash deficit. It's not a cash deficit that you have to raise in the budget or anything like that. You just have to fund it. So I've spoken with Steve Rogat, our bond counsel, about taking a look at this and seeing what we have to fund so that we can get rid of those cash deficits within the improvement authorizations. It's just because there's a lag in the move forward of the projects. The required match portion for Municipal Alliance grant was not properly appropriated and transferred to the grant fund. The Municipal Alliance program, as much of the municipal match portion is done by in-kind matching, not dollar-for-dollar matching. The Municipal Alliance report notes the in-kind contributions as required. So when you put a police officer at a Municipal Alliance event, that's part of our in-kind contribution to them, because we're funding the police officer. So we have much of that in-kind contributions towards that program.
So why does the auditor not know that? That's what
he does, but remember, he's got a narrow view of, he's looking at the finance piece of it.
Yeah.
So he knows that he's supposed to have a dollar match, but there's no in-kind match that we account for per se. But for the grant purposes, when we tell them, yes, we have DPW guys working and we have all the rest of the stuff, and those are in-kind matches. It counts for the grant, but it doesn't. There's no way to account for it.
Why doesn't the auditor know that we've obviously, in order to get the grant, we have to do the in-kind? Why doesn't he automatically assume that we've done the in-kind?
He doesn't, because the grant says you have to provide in-kind, and I think it leads you to believe that you should provide a cash in-kind, but it's not required. Yeah. We've never done it that way. Right. We've never done it that way.
Okay.
We've always done the in-kind.
Gotcha.
The federal and state grant fund subsidiary ledger does not agree to the appropriated reserve schedule. The subsidiary ledger balances are adjusted annually to meet the audit adjustments once the audit is filed. So Obviously, the auditor makes audit adjustments that are there, so we take the audit report and then adjust the subsidiary schedules for the new year, start with the new numbers every year. Okay. Informal quotes were not obtained for purchases exceeding 15% of the bid threshold as required by statute. The informal quotes by phone are obtained. This comment relates to the fireworks that you did. I spoke with the administrator, and she told me that she had called several companies, but it wasn't written, not required to be written for informal quotes, by the way. More care will be made to record these types of informal quoting situations, and when I suggested to Roberta that even though they're informal, you should just write them down so that we have a document that we can give them to the auditor.
Okay.
There were instances in which goods and services were ordered prior to the encumbrance. These items relate to situations which required emergency action and professionals who hold bills until the end of certain tasks. The use of the manual requisition system, which we currently have, has a built-in time delay when processing the actual purchase order. Implementing a computer-based requisition system would assist in ensuring that the request to purchase and the purchase order meet the actual purchase encumbrance date. I've made that recommendation a couple of times that we move to a more computerized based system of requisitions. I don't know if you've ever had that discussion, but I've never been given. I think the last time it was $7,000 or $8,000.
$7,000 or $8,000?
Yeah.
Is that just for the software and the license?
That's for the software and the licensing, and basically what that does is it places software at every department head's fingers so that they can process the requisition via computer. Comes upstairs for approval via the computer, and then it goes over to finance, and then we cut the purchase order.
Okay. And you know our personnel as well as we do. Are you confident that our personnel will be able to handle it?
Your department heads? Oh, absolutely. It's not difficult. We do it in every other town that I'm involved in.
Some of the issues going back to grant funding and closing out of projects and things like that. Having that software alleviate some of this other issues in the...
It would alleviate the issues with regard to the quotes, because in the requisition system you have to put the quotes in, and it would alleviate the problem with purchasing prior to encumbrances, because you have to do the encumbrance before you can purchase. So those two it would help with.
Right.
The others, I don't know that would really have an impact.
Originally going back to the conversation about ending projects and when they end, would that system also help?
The requisition system wouldn't do that. No, that's really an administrative process that's got to take place.
Do you know of any state grants or anything that we might qualify for something like this to upgrade technology?
No. No.
Worth a shot. And then, is the software on subscription? $7,000 to $8,000 a year?
That's the installation, and then the system that we use is theMunidex system, and the continuing maintenance kind of thing. It goes up. It doesn't go up that much. It's like maybe another $500 or $600 to continue it.
Yearly?
Yeah.
So $500 a year to continue it.
Yeah, because we pay a certain amount now for maintenance and upgrades and all the rest of that.
I would think that would also save some of our people time.
Yes.
With the, maybe not $8,000 a year worth of time, but over X amount of years. It certainly would be worth overtime.
I operate the same system as you do here in Little Falls. If you'd like to come see it, we do it that way. We do.
I've worked with.
Yeah, I mean, I can specifically show it to you how it goes. It's very quick, and you lose that time frame between getting the requisition done, doing the purchase, and cutting the purchase order. It makes a big difference.
Killing a couple trees, I would imagine, right?
Yeah.
Faster and easier.
Yeah.
I think we should
Consider
that. For that amount of money,
Yeah, it's not. I mean, if we plan for it in a new budget, I mean, I think it's a doable number. Okay, so now those are the ones that were prior years then.
Does that have to be implemented in the beginning of the year, or can it be implemented
No,
during the year?
it doesn't. There's no. Yeah, sure.
What the functions of the
Yeah.
different programs
Absolutely, I can get your formal quote on it.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, something to do something on paper that says, if we do get this, here's the sort of issue to alleviate, here's the benefit that you see for our county.
Okay, I can do that.
The bullet point, because obviously you've seen how it was not using it versus using it, so you
Right.
can tell you you can be able to tell us benefits.
Yes.
Bullet points is where we have it, and I think we'll speak with the administrator. You know, if we're going to move on it, we should move on it as soon as possible, so maybe it's in full swing by January.
Okay.
How long does it take to implement once you decide you're going to do it?
Weeks.
Okay.
Weeks, as long as you have the appropriate hardware.
Okay. If we're all going to do it, it'd be nice to do it. Sorry.
Okay. Did you have a question?
No, you said it's appropriate hardware, I'm not going to say.
Oh, okay. Okay, so prior years' interfund balances were not liquidated prior to the close of the fiscal year. Okay, interfund balances are a thing of government. They happen all the time. Basically what it is, it's a cash flow function. When we get short in one fund, we borrow from another fund. It's allowed in the statutes, it's required. The finance officer is the one that makes the determination to do that, and you can see while it's common, interfunds exist, the borough will conduct a review of interfund balances and return those interfund balances is customary during the subsequent fiscal year. So what we do is we go back and forth, and then at year end they're on the balance sheet. They're either a liability or a receivable. Once the audit's done and they identify those as these are the actual interfund balances, then what we do is we turn the money back over to where it's funded and we start over again.
And again, part of the reason is because at the beginning of the first quarter of the year, we have no money.
Sometimes it's that, sometimes we get a big bill that we didn't anticipate coming in the time frame for capital, and then we got to fund some capital money out of current fund. And the other one that happens here, quite frankly, is the swim pool. Because swim pool doesn't catch up with a lot of revenue at the beginning, so we've got to help them from the current fund, and we put it back when they get it.
Okay. All right, John.
Okay. All right. The deferred charge for payroll expenditures, $7,301 from 2016, not been raised through the budget appropriations. That one we just have to raise in the 2020 budget. It's just a matter of putting the deferred charge in. Bank reconciliation prepared by the client for the current fund includes invalid outstanding checks. Reconciling items and old outstanding checks will be reviewed as appropriate. You'll see another response here with regard to this, but vendors sometimes take a long time to cash checks, so we don't cancel them as quickly as you might in your regular businesses. We kind of hold them open for a little longer because we know they take a long time. Because if we cancel them and then we have to reissue them, there's a whole process I got to go through with the council, with resolutions and whatnot to get another check issued. So we do look at them, but sometimes they can get a little bit long. And the other one that happens is in the payroll account, because believe it or not, people don't cash their payroll checks when they're supposed to. But hopefully we've now gone past that, because now we've gone to direct deposit.
Okay.
So we should see less of that.
None of that, right?
I'm sorry?
None of that.
Hopefully, yes. There are transactions on the current fund statement which are not posted to subsidiary ledgers. These items were identified and addressed related largely to chargebacks for tax payments. They're adjusted in the tax program and in the general ledgers. Sometimes the subsidiary ledgers don't take the bounce checks, and we just adjust them in the accounting record that is going to be reported on. There are scale-dated outstanding checks and deposits in transit being carried as reconciling items on the following bank reconciliations, and that's basically the same thing. Those are the accounts. They have voided checks of immaterial amounts, some of them as low as $5 or $6. Adjusted subsequent bank reconciliations. Regarding the payroll account, we maintain a longer period of time open for payroll checks not cashed, and that's the same discussion that I was just referring to. The general capital fund subsidiary ledger does not agree to the audited balances for improvement authorizations. The current system in use for capital improvements is reconciled annually using an Excel spreadsheet to proof the balances. I do that specifically myself, and expenditures. We will discuss with the software vendor the best way to adjust the balances in the system to reflect what is on the Excel spreadsheets. So what happens is there's audit adjustments, and the system that we use doesn't like to make audit adjustments. So there's always a little bit of variance, which is why I've always done an Excel spreadsheet to reconcile from what the audit is to what our records are. It's just the way it is. The resolution for petty cash does not specify the custodians in accordance with the statutes. This is another resolution that I gave to Barbara for your approval for tonight. The resolution was prepared originally by the clerk's office in the past, and you have it with the names of the custodians at this point in time. There's a deficit of $18,956 in the recycling trust due to invoices paid in excess of available amounts. The recycling program is operated under a dedication by rider, and as such, revenues generated are used for recycling expenditures. The recycling markets have become soft over the past few years, and the trust account will ultimately fund the deficit. However, the recycling coordinator should review the program and adjust expenditures to reflect the reduced revenue, and that's really what's going on. The markets are drying up. There was instance in 2017, the tax court judgment was incorrectly applied. This was brought to the attention of the auditors by the tax collector. She had identified the issue for the auditors, and the corrections to the tax line items have already been made. With regard to the court, there are 22 tickets that are in the other case status on the December monthly management report. As you know, the Borough has a shared service arrangement with the Borough of Paramus Municipal Court. The Borough should hold a discussion with the Paramus Municipal Court regarding the resolution of this comment. I'm sorry? I'm done. You're leaving and I'm just looking at. So if anybody has any questions or would like to talk in more detail about any of it, I'm happy to do so. You're welcome. I'm glad to be here. No?
Does anybody have any other questions? Okay. I think we can move forward.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you.
All right. Next order of business. George, we're ready for you, George. Finally. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
George Kutsaritis?
Kutsaritis?
Kutsaritis. There's no I in there, I should have known. Not Kutsaritis.
That's just not, really don't want to read. It's just a brochure and my business card, so you get to have a little bit of info about me. And of course, let me bring out my super fun tool, the ChargePoint CT4000. So do we want to wait for the mayor, or?
You should get back shortly.
In the meantime, I'm going to...
You thought you were going to take a little time to set up.
Well, that's why I prep myself.
Set up there.
All right. So I'll start with showing you the demo station first. This is the ChargePoint CT4000. This specifically would be a 4021, which is our dual port station. Now, as it is right now, the town was awarded a grant for a single port station from the NJDEP for the amount of $5,000, or up to $5,000. You are still allowed to use that if you so choose to go up to a dual port.
How much what's the difference in cost between the single port and the dual port?
It's roughly about, off our co-op, it's about $1,870. So, you consider that with all the costs. I do believe...
$1,870 more?
Correct.
$18.70.
1,800, yeah. 1,000. Nicely done. Yeah.
What's that number again?
$1,870 would be the price difference from a single port to a dual.
So, but what's the overall cost of that?
So,
The single port versus-
overall,
Sorry.
we had multiple proposals that I prepared for
Yes.
Roberta.
We did get them.
3-year service, 5-year service, which I'll get into in a second, and one including a turnkey solution where me and my company would cover everything, and then one where local DPW or local electrician covers what we call the make-ready cost, which would essentially be preparing the panel and meter, running the conduit, running the electrical, which I would provide all those specs for whoever it is, and then we just come in and furnish and install the station itself, as well as validating and activating. So real quick, just to answer your question, so I have, if make-ready was provided by a third party, for 5 years of service, we're talking $9,043.75. At 3 years, I believe it's slightly less than that, somewhere in the 8,000 range. Whereas if we went for the turnkey solution, I know if we switched it to the dual port, we would essentially be somewhere in the 25,000, 26,000 at a turnkey rate. Okay, so again...
Can you explain the turnkey rate?
Yes, absolutely. So the turnkey solution, once again, that's my company preparing everything. We would work on preparing the permits, engineering, working with the local utility, which I believe is KSEMG up here. Working with them to prepare it, we would furnish and install the meter and panel system, run all necessary conduit, all wiring, furnish and install the station, as well as put up bollards, signage, and striping. So that would be what is considered the turnkey. We're covering everything from beginning to end, selling the station, properly installing it, validating it, activating it, making it ready for the public. If we were to go to what we consider that make-ready cost, again, we would be furnishing and installing the station, activating it, validating it, but we wouldn't be doing anything in regards to all the prep. Correct.
What is it? Why offer that? Why would we want to go outside and have somebody else?
Right. So the option is essentially if you have a local DPW or local electrician.
That could install.
Right. They can do that work. Usually you have some kind of negotiation with them where the cost can be reduced. So I like to offer all options for the town because obviously I'm not going to sit here and bully you and say, hey, you got to go with me to do everything. I want the station to get in the ground, and I want it for, the least cost to the town.
Okay, so assuming our DPW is skilled enough to take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
One price, the turnkey price is, and our DPW or someone else that we have on staff doing it is the two numbers.
Right.
I can just get it, but I want to hear it again.
Yep. So again, if I'm doing the turnkey solution,
And is it for a single or double?
Do it for the dual port, because I looked at the numbers, I don't think a single port is even worth it from the map.
So, sorry, just give me 1 second so
If that's okay.
properly.
No, I
think it is. Yeah.
the dual port is what we have up
I'm
here.
Yep. Just 1 second. So the dual port turnkey quote at 3 years of service, and again I'll get into this in a minute, would be $25,670.30.
A year or a year?
No, that's the project cost. Yep. So once again, that's $25,670.30. The 5 years of service would be $26,839.75.
And that's the turnkey.
Yes, these are both turnkey for the dual port station.
And what if we did the make ready?
If you were to do the make ready, it would, just 1 second again. Apologies, that's on the single port. We would be looking at
5 years of service for the make ready would be $10,913.75. The 3 years of service would be $10,124.
I want to make sure we have the same terminology. When I'm thinking of service might be something you're different. You're not saying, well, what are we calling service? The actual use of this, or are you servicing this? What is the service?
Right. So, the two services that are coming into this proposal, the first one is the cloud plan service. So, these stations, they're all smart stations. They connect to the cloud, so that connects you to the station, it connects the drivers to the station, it connects charge points to the station. So this is so that way, when I go on, I'm driving my EV, I want to find a station available. I end up looking on the app, I find it, I can go right onto it. So that first service, the cloud plan service, that covers all software updates, it covers all connectivity, it also covers any and all software issues can be directly repaired by ChargePoint. It happens real time, so there's never any issues, and you also get to see everything real time. That's the first. The second service is what's called a SWIP. It's essentially, and I hate using the term warranty, but it's essentially a proactive warranty. So say anything happens to the station, if a plow truck hit it, or someone got too close and hit it, or a wire shorted internally, for whatever reason, the station goes down, right? Rather than you finding out from angry residents or by having to constantly check it, within 2 hours of it being down, ChargePoint will contact you to say, hey, the station is down, this is what we believe is the issue, do you mind if we send someone out to come fix it? And with a 98% uptime, there's virtually no downtime that residents end up seeing, because within one business day, someone's out here to repair whatever the issue is.
Okay, so we're looking at the turnkey 20 and change, make ready for five, and I'm doing the 5-year one, for 5 years, 10,000. After year 5, we enter is there a new contract? How does that work? And what is that's the outlay for this. What's the next year's contract? What's the next year's number? Like, what's year 6 going to cost?
So year 6, again, at that point, the product and the install, that's all not part of it. It's already done, the project is done.
Okay.
So all you're looking at is the renewal cost for those subscription fees. If you choose that you want to go an additional 5 years, you can do it at that.
What's the number?
That's line itemed at $5 years would be $1,049.75 for an additional 5 years.
So presumably, the technology is going to improve rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
Are we covered during that time for upgrades to the system?
Yes, so there are multiple programs as far as upgrades. Now, as of right now, this 4000 series has been on the market since 2012. It's proven to still be ahead of the current curve as far as the technology is advancing. But if in the event, say in 2 years or something, they come out with the 5000 or something.
Okay.
They do have an upgrade program where essentially we would rip and replace it. They end up determining that number, but the current program right now for outside, competitor's station would be 3000. Everything's covered, done. So essentially it would be that at some kind of discounted state co-op rate. The software-wise services, though, would be covered. It would blend in.
And here's the big question. That's our outlay. What could we expect to get back during that time?
So the biggest one, again...
No, that's the next question.
Mm-hmm. So you being the station owner, you get to determine the fees that you want to... Yes. You get to determine the fees that residents are paying for it, or drivers are paying for it. So I have 5 scenarios that I hope Roberta passed on to you as well.
Yeah.
So these are the 5 main scenarios that I like to recommend to all municipalities in New Jersey. This is based off of specifically what I provided, based off of Bergen County's general setup and other existing stations, so that way drivers won't look at it as they're shocked. You know, the price is agreeable, it's understood, they're willing to do it. So if you look at scenario 1, you have a simple hourly cost of $1.50 an hour. So as I go there, I plug in, sit there for 2 hours, $1.50 each hour, I pay $3, I'm good to go, and I'm on my way. You end up getting to see 90% of that. The other 10% is just ChargePoint taking on the credit card fees that come to it, as well as, you know, all the operation costs to end up providing it to you. They end up sending you that money monthly or quarterly, whether you want a check or direct deposit, up to you, however is easier for you. The second scenario you have, which I do recommend for starting up, is what's called service and hourly. Essentially, I go in, my session, I pay $2 up front. So whether I'm there for a minute or I'm there for an hour, I pay $2. But then my hourly cost would only be an hour. So in the same 2 hours, still just $3, right? But for you as a town, you get to see money a little bit quicker and easier as more and more cars are still coming up. So there are a lot of vehicles already in existence, especially in Bergen County. As of last month, there's just over 5,000 in the entire county. In Maywood, in a 10-mile radius of Maywood, there's approximately 3,500. So there's quite a bit. With that being said, you know, I can highly expect.
Are they all at the dealership though? No.
Yeah. They are actual registered members. Solid question. So, I believe the demand would be high. What I recommend though is, while everything is still new, you can set up that session amount and you can kind of see it.
Pardon my ignorance on this, because I don't remember that. How long does it take to charge? How long are they at the station for?
So it really depends on the vehicle and...
What's a high, like, a long vehicle? Like, what's the longest and what's the
So,
shortest?
right, so based off global averages and also statewide averages, the average session will take about 2 hours to charge, but they'll stay there for about 4 hours. That's also assuming that, you know, a lot of these are at retail locations as well, so, you know, maybe I'm fully charged within 2 hours, even though I was notified that I'm fully charged. I said, it's all right, I'm here with the family, I'm eating dinner, I'm going to hang out. So the session lasts about 4 hours. In that regard, you get to manipulate if you want to charge what we like to call a motivation fee. After they're fully charged, you can tell them, okay, it's time for you to move on so that way the next vehicle can charge up. So you can also put that into your factors of ROI. But yes, so to answer your question, roughly about 2 hours, 4 hours is what the session will be.
All right, so now you're on method 3.
Correct. Method 3 is what we internally call the hourly plus squatting fee. So like I just said, I fully charge within 2 hours, okay? But I want to sit there for 4. So the squatting fee, or the when fully charged fee, comes into play. You can put a grace period of, say, 15 minutes. It'll notify me on my phone saying, hey, the vehicle is fully charged. If you don't move it within 15 minutes, this will be the fee that's tacked on hourly from that. Or even minutely, if you want to be like that. But not recommended. What I do recommend, though, is we make it a motivational fee. That's $10, that's $20. I know some municipalities that, with their current parking lots, they have something set up like that, and they've gone all the way up to $50. I think it's excessive, but they know their town better than I do, so the options are up to you. You get to manipulate it however you see fit, and you can change it as much as you want. So that's what we have as that. ROI scenario 4 is kind of just a combination of everything I spoke of already. And then number 5 is one that's been a little more popular for up here, and it's essentially just setting it by an hourly amount. So it's called stacked hourly. Essentially for the first 2 hours, which we assume is what it takes to actually charge, you only charge $1.50. But after that, whether you're retail or you're municipality or whatever the case may be, you've been there for 2 hours, whether you're fully charged or not, you get to still be there, but we're going to up that amount to say $250. That way, it's still motivation, but rather than you tagging on, a 1 hour timeline fee, it's just progressing gradually. So that's always an option. It has been more popular. I know towns such as Princeton, Rutherford, and Franklin Lakes have adopted that policy because they just feel that was what they felt the most fair. So that is also an option as well.
You insert your credit card, you swipe, I mean, how does this work?
Right.
App, on the phone, Apple?
So you'll notice there is no actual card or change or anything like that. There are 3 options to activate the station. The first one is straight through the mobile app. You go on, you find it, you click Start Charge, you'll hear it unlock, and you're good to go. The second option is, which every new driver gets, is a key fob. So just a simple, card, you ping, it goes across, you wait for it to start up, you hear it click, you do it. This is my car.
Or you plug it into Rich.
But essentially, if my car wants to agree with me, ta-da, and the session starts.
All right, what's the third one?
The third one, and this is exclusive for ChargePoint, no other charging station currently out there is able to do it, is using Apple Pay, Android Pay, Samsung Pay. You can go through it, you can set up the card right here, and again, you just pin it to your phone.
Okay. So that seems like what I'm about to ask you is possible based on that little card that you have. Is it possible that we could charge 2 different fees based on resident and non-resident?
Yes.
And you have that ability to do that?
Mm-hmm.
So we could actually say we don't even want to charge a resident in town.
Absolutely.
That, because they already paid for it, they're already paying for it. So we could just have it where if you're not, okay. How's that set up? Does somebody have to come to Borough Hall and register for one of those little cards?
Right, so as far as the card links to the same account on your phone.
Whatever the mechanism it would be to differentiate resident versus non-resident.
Right. All it takes is
you
set up through your dashboard, which would, you set it up all in here, you set up an account. They come to either Borough Hall, or you set it up.
I'm sorry. I'm just having a hard time here. No, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, you set up this internal account, title it Maywood Residence or whatever.
Okay.
They come in, they tell you what their ChargePoint account number is.
Okay.
You put them in it, so that way any of your stations, when they come to use it, it's registered, it's not being charged to anything.
Okay. How many of these charge points do you have from Pleasant Ave? What's the radius? Like, how many of that 3,500? How many of that 3,500 are close to us? Like,
so
currently, do they have a bunch? I mean, what is?
So currently, just within like a 5-mile radius, basically just tapping Paramus, just tapping Hackensack, there's only about 11 stations.
Okay.
2 of which are at BMW and the Harley Davidson. So while they're good, a lot of times those are being occupied by their vehicles.
Okay.
So you can argue that they're not really a public station.
So if somebody's driving and they're like, I'm low on fuel battery, I'm low on my battery, I got to charge. They're coming to Maywood now because we're the closest, and they have to charge. And while they're charging, they're going to sit in their car. There's a chance to go get pizza at Mario's or Angelo's or whatever pizzeria we have, or anything.
I forget the exact parking lot we picked, but it was
behind
basically...
behind me. So they're not going to sit in, unless it's inclement weather, they're not going to sit in their car.
Right.
They're going to come outside and use our
and they're going to walk, they're going to shop.
Is that the research that you've done in other towns?
Right. Yeah, that's why most municipalities, you want to keep it by the downtown area, by the shopping area, or by something that can occupy them for that time. You don't want them to just sit there. You get bored after a few minutes just sitting in your car. So it encourages them to also shop locally, go visit the library, pay their taxes, I don't know, whatever the case may be.
Well, What's the warranty after year 6 on this?
So after year 6, you can do the Sure program again.
So we would just if we re-up, like you said before, with the what was it, 1,000 change a year after that?
That was the cloud plan, yeah.
The cloud, and that comes with the warranty. As long as we re-up with you, we're under warranty still. Then.
Right, yeah. The Assure, the warranty is a separate amount.
Separate amount.
Yeah, they're two different.
Wait, that's a separate amount after the 5 years, or that's a separate amount for the first 5 years as well?
Right, they're both services are two entirely separate lines. So the cloud plan service, 5 years of service, $1,049.75.
Okay.
The Assure is $2,370.
So year 6, we're paying another $3,000.
Correct. If you want an additional 5 years, you can also do it annually, year by year if you wanted to. But again, you do 5 years in advance. It's just like anything when you buy in bulk, you're saving. The savings is essentially an entire year and a quarter of a year in savings.
Your projections, or just by looking at stuff that you have already in, what kind of yearly return, or ROI, what's our return on investment year? What can we look at?
So my favorite scenario is scenario 5, which after 5 years we would make almost $17,000.
Correct. And that's including the cost of the project.
So
we're up $17,000. We're netting $17,000.
That's including the cost of the project
after 5 years.
The average cost of the utility.
That's your best case scenario, or is that middle of the road, or is?
No, that's
the average.
That's average.
You're saying in 5 years we would pay for the unit and make $17,000?
Correct. If you were to put it at that amount.
Using that particular model, but now it's 50 for 2 hours, that's the model you're talking about?
Correct. Yes.
That's my favorite call.
Now, all right. Presumably you're going to other towns and trying to get more of these in every town. As the market gets saturated, because right now it's not, but in the upcoming years, as these cars become more prevalent, your machines are your charging points are going to become more prevalent. Now our income stays the same because there's more cars, or it goes down because there's more stations?
So the studies that are currently existing are essentially basing it off of the stations and the amount of cars on the road move simultaneously.
Okay.
What I can tell you right now is internally what we determine as a good model of ratio car to the station is 1 to 2. 1 station for every 2 cars. Now, like I said, in New Jersey there's about 25,000 registered vehicles. There's only about 1,000 stations, public stations in New Jersey. So right now we're at a 25 to 1. So even if in the next 5 years those stations increase, based off how everything is moving, I feel the car demand, so the overall driver demand is still going to be much higher. So I don't see your station getting less. If anything, I see it getting more.
And now this is something that we don't...
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing with the conversations happening in the back. If folks could maybe, I don't know if they want to have a conversation outside, they can have a conversation outside.
I know this.
There is a public portion.
We're gonna have the public speak, and I know you guys are all gonna want to add to this. So I just want to make sure we're gonna make an educated decision. I think we have to get it done. So I'm sorry, but I don't know if let me get back to where I was. Oh, this isn't something that needs any kind of advertising because you have the app.
Correct.
And so this is something that we're not going to have to put a sign saying a charging station back here. They'll basically direct you right to the station.
So when we
pinpoint
pinpoint it from the moment it's installed, we narrow it down to the very specific parking spot.
So
from
that
the
app will bring them right there.
Yep.
But how does now, when I go buy a Prius or a Tesla or whatever, they're all going to tell me where your station is? How do I? So no matter what brand of electric vehicle, they're going to tell me about energy.
So certain vehicles even have it inside their internal setup where it notifies you saying you're low, here's available stations. Not all vehicles do that, but Tesla does it, and I believe Nissan does it, and Kia now recently. But as long as you have the app, which again, you have to have it to set up the account, or even third-party ones, such as PlugShare, which takes all of them, all of the stations, whether they're what's called a dumb station or a smart station, it tries to show all of it. They give it to you, and whether it's Google Maps or Apple Maps, you can click, bring you to it, and it will start directing.
Now, obviously there's other companies that provide charging stations, or you're the only company in New Jersey?
So, as far as manufacturers, there's obviously multiple you can choose from, but ChargePoint is the global leader. Globally, they have over 100,000. Just last month, they broke that 100,000 mark. The second most is, I believe, EV Box with about 15,000.
You guys install other brands, or this is the one you guys install most?
We will install others, but we are, in New Jersey, the only certified partner of ChargePoint.
Okay.
So we prefer them just, again, because they prove time and time again to be the best quality.
Are they in all 50?
They're globally, yeah.
Oh, so they're outside of
Yep,
States.
they're in Australia, they're in Europe, they're in Africa, China, everywhere.
Wow.
Now, when I buy an electric vehicle, it generally comes with a charger that gets installed in my house as part of that purchase. So this isn't really designed to help me as a Maywoodian get my car charged in the parking lot. It's meant for transit, right? So I'm driving along the highway and I'm low on battery. It's not going to be the guy down the street that's going to get it, right? It's going to be somebody coming through me.
So yes and no. The biggest thing is, as far as the car, when you purchase it, you get what's called a level 1 charger. This is the equivalent of your laptop charger. So you can imagine if you were to plug in your vehicle to a laptop charger, it takes forever. It takes roughly, between the cars, 12 to 48 hours to fully charge on what they provide. They do offer you level 2 home stations, which would be the equivalent power of this, but that's not complimentary, and it really does depend on the house. So basically, as a general rule of thumb, any homes built prior to 1990, their existing panel probably isn't adequate enough. So while yes, they can install it, you're adding a lot of cost.
How many amps does this draw when you're charging?
I'm sorry?
How many amps does this draw when you're charging?
So each port on full power can run 32 amps. That's why we put it on a 40 amp breaker per setup. But we can also reduce that. Now, granted, we're putting it in a brand new service where we're putting it, so we would have it at the full power. But say, later down the road, you want to put it somewhere using an existing panel and it's reduced, we have what's called power shift. So, not to go too far into it, because that's not the scenario we're looking at. Basically, if 2 cars are going and charging at the same time, it reduces the amount that each gets, but as one pulls out, it gets the full charge. Again, this is a ChargePoint exclusive amenity for later down the road. Any station that's a ChargePoint is able to do that.
Can we power it down a little bit so it takes longer to charge, thereby getting more money?
Absolutely, if you wanted to.
Okay.
And then the word gets around that nobody wants to use the Maywood charger.
So, man, maybe we'll scratch that, but they will actually be notified if it is a reduced charge.
Well, here's the thing. At the end of the day, every single person who has an electric car has a hookup at their house. And if the case were that they were able to charge at their house, then there'd be no reason to have these things. Right?
Yes,
so the fact that you have these things tells you that charging at your house, for the most part, isn't the only way to get your I mean, once you're out, you're not going to go back home and get charged. You're going to come to this, right? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so the other big thing is, as you drive now, it's what it's called, depot fueling. You have to go out of your way to the gas station, even if it's on the route, it's still a detour to stop somewhere and fill up.
Okay.
This is what the new setup is called top off. So everywhere you go, when you go home, you top off. When you go to work, you top off. When you go to the retail, municipal, whatever it is, you top off everywhere you go. Reason being is, if you've seen anything about EVs, the biggest concern is range anxiety. Now, more and more with Tesla, Chevy, Kia, they're trying to battle that by adding more range to it. But, even myself, I drove up here from Hamilton with my Chevy Bolt. I've got 238. Now, I am confident that I'll get home in one charge. But if I was driving all around, I would have to stop somewhere. I would have that range anxiety. And I'd be fearing that if I don't get home, it's the equivalent of if you run out of gas. I'm either getting towed or I'm sitting there.
So to Councilman Ball's point, for the residents, we were gonna give it, that we're thinking, we're gonna give it to them for free anyway, they're gonna be charging at their house probably, so we're not gonna be giving too much. We're not gonna have too many times where people are gonna be using that charger from town and taking it from somebody else because they're probably gonna charge at home.
But again, it really does depend on their home setup, because again, like I said, if they're pre-1990 and in order for them to install it, it's going to cost them $2,000-3,000, and they don't want to do that because right next door this is free. I'm going to take this over it 9 times out of 10.
Does the projected income that you were saying, does that take into account what it costs us to?
Yes, it does cover, it's based off state average, so I don't know what your actual utility rates go for around here, but the state average of 12 cents per kilowatt hour is what it's based off of. Obviously, if you gave me an update, I would adjust the ROI accordingly, but regardless, even if you upped it to, say, 19 cents a kilowatt hour, you're still making a profit.
I think you answered this already, but do you have any towns that you can say have done the full 5 years already?
Not 100%. I believe Rutherford's on year 3, I want to say. Again, it's for the early adopters. Rutherford and Princeton were the most early adopters of it, but a lot of it is still, no one's seen the full 5 years yet. What I can say, though, is as far as where they are on the timeline, they are either right on track of what I've projected or ahead of the game. Rutherford is pretty close, based off of what I've seen. Again, I don't check them daily, but, I do check them every once in a while to see just what their revenue's at. So they are basically on track, so I would assume they're right about at a break-even point.
Do you have any examples of ones that are behind the curve that didn't project out as well as you thought it would? I mean, you don't have to give the town's name,
right?
But you know of towns like that, and are they similarly situated to Maywood?
Really, it only comes down to, the biggest thing is this. If you are debating on whether charging a fee or free, which sometimes did, they decided that let's do free for the first 90 days, and then let's put
free for the residents or free for everybody? Oh, we're not doing that at all.
Right. But right. So those are the ones where, it said it was free, 90 days later I come by, all of a sudden now it's charging me, now I'm less interested in it. You can always offer a small fee and people are okay with it, but if you go from free to pay, you're going to lose it.
You're projecting that all in, plus the electricity that we're using to supply this installation, everything, you're projecting that we are in the area of $17,000. Correct. Correct. This is one of those situations.
It sounds stupid to me.
No, I think I'm just talking about the council at this point. You guys know me, I always said, even with the pool, if we lose money in the pool, I don't care because that's benefit to the resident. This is something I wouldn't want to lose any money, but I mean, if this is even a break-even situation, it's still a benefit, and it's bringing people into our town to spend money in town. What I don't want to see, and I don't know if we can prevent that, is where we lose money. That's something I don't want to do. But this is, the break-even.
If we go another 5 years, and we say the cost is, you said it was about $4,000 full set, so now 3,500, I think it is. Now we're looking at making we're looking at $40,000 for that 5 years.
Okay, so so if that was about the initial outlay, then
it's still, viable 10 years down the road.
Assuming you don't have to replace the fee.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
Or,
sure
with that work, the warranty, that's what a short covers.
Yeah, obviously, a lot of this stuff, but I mean, to the more and more people are going to be having these things. I don't know if we'd be considered, are we considered early adopters still? It would be considered early adopters.
So basically anyone who's in this phase one of the NJDP grant is still considered an early adopter. After that fact, it might, lead out, but this first station that you have, you're definitely an early adopter.
What are the highest numbers that you're seeing, high-end of charge per hour?
High-end session?
Yeah, high-end,
Early, or
Say like
price.
Price.
So, price-wise, I've seen, I believe, it's somewhere around Howden area.
Yeah.
Someone is charging $5 an hour.
Well, okay, what's a number that you can see where people are like, I'm not going there? Oh, no, it's not. Oh, no. What's the number that you can see, like, oh, that's a little pricey, but you know what, I don't want, what's the highest number
Right, the highest,
before you start?
before it breaks off, I wouldn't go much higher than $2.50 an hour at the initial.
If I plug it in my house, get an average, what the average New Jersey pays per hour, if I just plug it in my house?
It really does depend on what they're paying, because each utility,
Did you use PSE?
even PSE&G kind of varies. But let's say their average cost is about $60 a month. If they're charging at their house every day, when you consider all that kilowatt hours that's going into it, and that same breakdown, and again, that's why $1.50, as far as the research I've done and what I've seen, $2.50 would be high.
Assuming that's what we're going to pay. Okay. Assume I want to be at the highest part before we start taking people away.
So what this has is the first 2 hours is $1.50, so then you suck them in. And then the third hour on is $2.50, and so that's kind of like their tax. Like, you're staying too long, you should probably go.
So the idea is, the first 2 hours, you're actually charging, you're using it, you're good to go. After that, most sessions, both locally and in New Jersey, are finished after those 2 hours. So what we're saying is, you're welcome to still stay here, but now you're just taking up a spot, so we're going to charge you extra.
Now, what do you find that what the word you call it? When they're afraid, when they were afraid.
Motivation fee?
No, the other one, when they were afraid that the anxiety. Anxiety. All right, so I might just come here, you see, it's where they're just here for like 10, 20 minutes just to get it, top off.
Right. Yeah. So in that,
are we still making money on that?
Yes. You're still making money any way you want.
Okay.
Another piece to it also is just, I really only recommend it to municipalities. Okay. So you notice that there's a screen here. This is just a generic charge point screen. You as a station owner also get to advertise on it. You can reach out to local business if you said Mario's Pizza or something. If they want to put their advertisement up, you can charge them, say, hey, you can advertise on our station. You can put up to a 30-second ad video in it, so they can put a whole thing. If you want to get multiple businesses involved, that's also another.
Is there sound on that?
There isn't any sound.
Okay, no, that's fine.
But, it's a video that, again, I literally have to be right here, so it's similar to the gas station screens that you see, right there as I'm setting it up.
Now, what would keep you there looking at those 30 seconds? Why would I stand there for 30 seconds? You have to wait.
So,
that'll be a good ad.
Oh, you have to wait, well, I guess you have to wait for that.
So you saw it did take a little bit of time, so from when I start, this ad will keep going throughout it. So it starts, it's got a process and everything, then you heard the click, then I undo it. So roughly in that 30 seconds, I've seen your ad, or at least a piece of it.
Put something in there, so pieces or right now, one piece of it.
So, and actually, there was, who was it? Target, when they initially did like a nationwide setup, they actually did a promo coupon in it, where it literally was like, if you ended up using the station, you gave us this, they discounted like $10 off an order.
Wow.
Receiving it.
Maybe do like free calzone or something.
You can do that, yeah.
With a charge.
With a charge.
Let's get back to the grant. The $5,000 grant was technically for the single one. So we don't need to go back to the state to say we want a dual charger. We can just say we want a dual charger.
Right. As long as you're understanding, you can't ask for more. You can only get that $5,000.
Right.
Is that a one time, or can we use that towards the next Can you reapply in 5 years?
Oh, you can apply right now for more stations.
No, I'm sorry. I was thinking, you can reapply for the re-up, to re-up it, re-up.
Upgrade?
After 5 years.
I'm sorry,
You're not going to get more grant money.
We're not getting more grant money for this no.
Right, yeah.
Or how okay.
The grant money is for this one, and then it's done. Okay. But you will see, the full 5,000 reimbursed.
Listen, I just...
Also, the ROI numbers going to that 5,000.
Oh, so we're actually making $22,000. Okay.
I don't see... I'm up forever an optimist. I gotta be honest with you. I think the bike lanes are asinine. Okay? I think the bike lanes are ridiculous. Only because people are texting. That's the thing. But I sent you a picture. I thought it was beautiful. I saw them in another town. I thought it was beautiful. It's something more than... I think this is a no-brainer. I mean, I'm taking your word for it, sir. You look honest, and I have to believe you. but you have an honest face, sir.
Let's put these white things.
You can do air. Fill up the air to tires.
Put them in the middle of the site. That'll slow people down.
I mean, like I said, even if this is a break even, which I mean, I don't see this as being a loss, especially since every year there's more and more of these cars coming out. Tesla's purchased. They're going to own the market. But this is just a break even. I mean, it's a benefit that we're giving to residents, but more importantly, we have people coming to our town that are going to use our businesses. They're not going to sit in their car for 2 hours. They're going to use our businesses. So with that as an understanding, maybe we get the Chamber of Commerce to pay for some of this. Or see if they'd be willing to put some of the SID money into it. I mean, to defer some of the cost. I don't know that they would, but they might. There's some money in there. Just because this is guaranteed. And at that point, we don't charge them to put in their ads. They can put their ads. Yeah, they can put their ads in there for free, and they can even say this is sponsored by such and such, such and such. But that could defer some of the cost.
Maybe the Chamber of Commerce or SID could sponsor with residents.
However they work, but somehow we can get some of the money from that, the initial outlay, and then maybe we're only spending 15,000 or 5, 10, and the other money from the Chamber of Commerce. Just a thought, but I think this is the future. There's no doubt about it. This is not going away. Electric cars are not going away.
It's the present.
I mean, I saw somebody sleeping while their cars operate. That's
not recommended, but yeah.
It's not recommended, but that's a big sale for me.
Yeah.
If people are reading books or newspapers while they're in traffic, so they bumper to bumper traffic, so that they don't have to drive. This is the future. So I mean, we either get in on the ground level of it or we wait. I mean, I don't think there's a detriment to waiting, but I don't see that there's a detriment to not waiting.
Cool.
Where are where are you guys thinking? What do you guys think?
I agree with you. Everything you said. I think, it is the future, and the future is now.
You know what? I didn't mean to insult you. That was not cool. I was making.
I just want to reiterate, it's not about bike.
I know it's not. I know.
It's not about bike.
I know, but listen, I'm not my choice. I know it's joking. I mean, I probably shouldn't have done it out.
It's fine. You've called asinine before.
Don't put that in words for things that I said out of that. I just, listen, and some people that are watching this, I didn't mean that. I really like this guy. I know, I tried to explain before, I know what you were thinking. You're trying to mitigate the traffic, and it's not to create bike lanes to mitigate the traffic. So having said that, it's an asinine idea. But Matt, this is your baby. This is a really good idea.
Thank you.
I don't see a detriment to this. I really don't. Where do we go from here? What at what point?
I mean, we're cleared with the grant.
Actually, quite a few people in my family have electric vehicles.
Oh, so they're gonna be using it?
Yeah.
And just for the
My
record,
brother.
I was all sleeping too, but I don't drive a Tesla, I've never been.
Tom?
I think it's a good idea. I'm still, I don't know if I want to make it free to the residents or not.
Okay, that's fine.
Because then they'll use that
Even if
instead
you
of
make it
their
reduced,
home.
though, you can do that as well.
Yeah, I mean,
I would make a universal rate if you
Okay.
want to do that. I mean, I don't get help buying my gasoline, so
Right.
why should somebody with an electric vehicle get help getting their car charged?
Well, the thought is this, and then,
I know-
that's fine. They're paying for it already. That's my thought. They're
But
paying-
me as a gasoline driving car guy pay for it too, so what am I getting?
Right.
That's my side of it. That's why I'm.
No, I know, you know what I'm saying? If you were paying for the installation of a gas station as a taxpayer, then you should get free gas. The taxpayers are paying for the installation.
But not
That's
all
my
the
thought.
taxpayers in town are going to use it, is my point.
Okay, so then the other people should be able to, okay, all right.
So that's why if we're going to charge it, everybody should pay.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, listen, we don't have to make that decision right now, but I hear what you're saying, maybe you are.
But again, you can also do, the same setup, you can set it up for, maybe they only pay 50 cents an hour or something. You can do a reduced amount if you wanted to.
So what's the next step right now? Where do we go from here?
So essentially,
I'm assuming we're all on board. Where do we go from here?
if everyone's on board, I'm not sure what your timeline is for the grant. Obviously you awarded it, and that timeline kind of moves very quickly. So essentially, you fill out all that paperwork, send over a PO to me. I end up processing the order. I can start it up. We contact PSE&G, obviously, to set up their line of things. We can have the project as a whole going within a couple weeks.
I do have a question though, because you said you can make ready and the turnkey.
Mhm.
Is it possible for, and I don't know if you've already sent that to Roberta, to get that information about what the specs are so that we can see if it's feasible for us to do it as a make ready, or we have to go to the turnkey?
I want to say that I did send it to her, but
Okay.
again,
If not, right,
if not, I can easily send that over.
Certainly also impact our decision.
Sure, it's a $15,000 difference.
Yeah.
Well, George, listen, unless anybody else has any questions, what I don't want to do is hold up the rest of the meeting. This is some great, you are, thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
As long as anybody has any questions, I think you really filled us in on a lot of the stuff. We'll discuss with the administrator, and we'll get some input from the town, obviously, but I think this is going to be, that unit is going to be in towns all over for town, essentially. So, I mean...
They are, already, currently. You just drive through and,
Okay. All right.
But thank you again.
Thank you,
everyone.
George.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Guys, did you guys have a chance to look at this thing? Can you spin it around so they
Yeah,
can see it? I don't know if they saw it. I mean...
And of course, the whole unit doesn't, it's not this small, it is actually a 6-foot,
Right.
tower.
Forget it.
But, yeah, so this is what you're looking at. You see the screen.
Aesthetic of the town.
Essentially, once you start a session, you can open it up, you plug in. Not recommended, but it is also, child safe, obviously. It is, you heard it click, so it is locked in, so, kids can't just run up and play with it. There's no, I'm not going to do it, but guys at ChargePoint have actually licked the thing. There's no power until it connects to the car. And also, if it does get disrupted, if somebody pulls it out of the car, power stops immediately. That's another piece. I didn't really talk about the safety side of things. Everything is precaution.
Okay.
Really.
And then, I mean, if you could lift the thing, that means in the rain you're not going to get electrocuted. Okay.
Yeah, these things are...
Yeah, you know what, if we're going to buy this, I need to see you lift that up.
Well, I think I'm done then.
All right, George, thank you so much. Thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it.
While you're doing that, you just...
Yes.
Yeah. Greg, very sorry that this took a little longer than normal, but we have right now the engineer's report. Sure. Please come on up.
Be glad to. Honorable Mayor and Council, we issued engineer's report dated the 1st of this month. For tonight's meeting, I'll briefly go through each of the individual topics. The first is the Maywood Avenue Streetscape Phase 2 project. Our office and the borough attorney marked out the 20 slabs on the western side of Maywood Avenue that need to be replaced due to the color of the patterns. Pending weather conditions tomorrow, the contractor is going to be proceeding, removing those slabs and replacing them at the French gray color that's required as part of the specifications. Then what they would do is then complete the pole installation and bollard installation, and the project would be closed out. The next item on the list is the year 2019 road improvement program. As you can see, concrete and milling has been completed on Spring Valley Avenue and Spring Valley Road. Pending tomorrow's weather conditions, paving is to occur on those roadways, and then the following week, concrete work would proceed on Park, Romaine, and Edgewood, followed by the following week, milling and paving would then occur thereafter. Gulf Avenue from Romaine to East Passaic Street, which is a DOT grant project. We held a pre-con this past Monday. This construction schedule is a 30-day construction schedule. Contractor is going to be starting the project very shortly and then would complete this project during the late fall season. The quote solicitation for Spring Valley Avenue, which was that dip that was located near the intersection of the Bergen Town Center and Spring Valley. The base has been installed. We're waiting for that to settle out. Once that's settled, then the top course will be applied, and then that project would be closed out, that solicitation. The fifth item we discussed tonight was the Spring Valley Avenue Road corridor traffic study. And then the sixth item, which isn't in our report, is we received an email from Bergen County for community development block grants. The mapping for Maywood has been revised. There are sections of town which we can apply for a grant. We anticipated applying for South Elm Street. That's within the community development block grant area. That would tie to Edgewood in that area that we're completing now. That would be filed in December. We would anticipate you'd receive that grant in the spring or summer of next year so that you could complete that project at that time. That concludes our report, but I'm glad to address any questions or comments that the governing body had.
Anyone have any questions for the engineer?
The Maywood Avenue Phase 2
Sure.
seems to be a bit of a mess.
Understand.
Is that, that's obviously going to be rectified?
That will be rectified 100%. And the borough attorney can talk to it also. We've had, as we knew early on in the project, we were going to have some problems with this contractor. We continue to have issues with him, but the project will move forward and it'll be addressed accordingly.
Thank you.
It's not. Oh, I will let you know tomorrow. Okay. There's an issue. Yep. Tomorrow is, I will say, I've spoken to the contractor. He is at the point now where if he doesn't show up tomorrow to work, I will get him bid. The lowest responsible bidder has been a nightmare for this thing. This town especially, but any other questions? Okay, Greg, you wouldn't mind just sticking around?
Be glad to.
After the public speaking and then just vote. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay, guys, I'm going to open up the meeting to the public at this point, and I do apologize for how long this took to get to you guys, and we're already almost at 10 o'clock. I do apologize. But as you saw, it's been a while. So, anyone from the public wishing to be heard, please come on up now. Please come on up.
Hildegard Amsler, 65 Edgewood Place. I originally came because I had concerns and questions, but I want to thank the borough engineer because he already answered them. So I got intrigued, though, by this whole thing. I think anything that encourages people to not drive the gas guzzlers, especially if you live in town, is a good thing. So I don't think it would be unreasonable to give a break to the residents because they're doing a huge plus just by not driving a gas guzzler. We all lose by that, and we all win by the vehicle that doesn't create more pollution. Just my feeling on that. I did have an unhappy thought, though, because I still miss the waiter in front of I was going to say the Maywood Inn, Twin Door, whatever it is, vandalism. How does that get protected? I mean, the bear is cute in front of the restaurant, but it's sad that the original thing that was there forever was vandalized. And I have to wonder, how does that not become the waiter
Yeah, I thought that was right. Does the warranty cover vandalism?
Yes.
It does, no matter to what degree.
Right, so if it's vandalized, as far as the hardware of it, the shell is actually designed with a metal that, you know, kids are spray painting it, it easily comes off. But as far as vandalism of it gets whacked or damaged or anything like that, the Assure covers it as well.
Okay. Okay.
And again, that plays out the same way. ChargePoint notices that the station is down, contacts you, says, this is what we believe is the issue. If you confirm it, we'll send someone out to fix it.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Because we obviously, unfortunately, do have vandalism. Sad fact of life. Spring Valley, and Matt, don't take it the wrong way, but has any consideration been given to somehow shrinking it by creating commuter parking, metered, or whatever?
Spring Valley?
Yeah, to shrink it.
That would really...
I'm sorry, what?
That would really shrink it over there. I mean, that's...
Well, I'm just thinking like eliminating a lane and making it somehow in some way commuter parking.
Talking about, but
Getting rid of, because if you look at New York City, which has been very successful with something called
why
Vision.
do people park there, Hildegard?
There are buses, and people commute to places even like Ridgewood and stuff. It's not just, you know, we think Manhattan, but people could go in other directions too, and it could take people out of their car off the road.
You think
I'm just trying to think, how can you shrink the road? Because the bike thing, well, in many aspects is a great idea in terms of exercise and everything else. Cutting down, again, on pollution. I mean, if somebody's on a bike, they're not polluting with their car. But if you look at New York City, which has tremendous success with a program called Vision Zero, it's been incredible in terms of pedestrian, how it has reduced the numbers of accidents. However, it hasn't worked with the bikes, unfortunately. Those statistics are appalling, if you just look at that. You know, so just food for thought. I don't know how it would work exactly. I'm not an engineer, but maybe...
I think we know someone.
Yeah, exactly. We have one right here. So maybe there is some way of, I don't know, just eliminating that whole, the side of the mall side, and making that lane. Because there is no sidewalk there. You could actually even expand the road if you needed more room to create the commuter parking. Because there is no sidewalk. It's just a curb and grass.
I think to Matt's point is, he's trying to do exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
But actually utilize the road for travel. What you would be doing is eliminating, you'd be taking three narrower...
Shrinking a lane, reducing it by a lane.
One lane, and then now you just have the same exact size lanes that you had before, but only one less. What Matt's trying to do is expand, have 3 lanes.
Yeah, I'm well aware of what he's trying to do. But I was just wondering if we somehow had thought some other alternatives.
I think the engineer will give us all the alternatives.
Even factoring in the possibility of some other option.
The engineer will give us alternatives.
That'd be cool.
We'll look at them.
Well, you don't have to give them now.
No, just as it relates to parking,
Yeah.
I think you'd have to weigh out, would people utilize that parking for the mall? And that'd be something you'd have to weigh out.
It would be metered, though. I mean, if you had it metered.
Understood. That's a good point. Yeah.
And that would be a partial offset to cost also. I mean, again, I don't know how... There are areas where you do have commuter parking that is metered. Fort Lee is a great example of that, by the way.
Yeah.
Food for thought.
I'm not 100% sure that I mean, I don't know the bus schedule for this, so I don't know how often and how much...
There is a major bus stop right across from the Chase Bank thing.
Yeah, I mean, is that, I guess the question would be, is that bus used enough that it would require a whole lane worth of parking?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either.
We'll find out.
But just an idea.
Yeah, well...
What? They're using that first. But have you ever tried to find a parking space at that...
At 5:45 in the morning, or 5 is probably available?
Yeah, but I'm just saying at odd hours and stuff, it's almost impossible.
Well, listen, Hildegard,
Food for thought.
We're going to be
We're on
looking at
overtime.
everything. We'll be looking at everything, so if that's something that comes up that's viable, we'll look at it. Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public from here? Please come on up, John. You know what? For next year, I think I'm going to task you guys with having portable mics, so you can go out there like Jerry Springer. So you don't have to get up.
Thank
What
you.
say you, John?
I say John Brown, 41 Stelling Avenue. I feel so charged after that presentation. Two questions. I'll throw a simple one out first. The leaf bags.
Yeah.
Is there a date for distribution?
They are available. Funny that you ask. Report on that side. They are available now.
Oh, because I haven't seen any official.
Oh, starting Monday?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have
them.
Okay, great.
Everybody else would like, I have plenty.
My second question is the resolutions tonight. There's two there, 193-19, 194-19. Normally when I've seen these resolutions in the past, there's always been a dollar amount associated with the refund. I assume that it's refund. I don't think many people put an appeal in to pay more taxes. And I don't see it this time.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, I can tell you the dollar amount. They're selling, the refunds are going to be $7,000 for 2 years, for roughly about $7,000 for 2 years for each one of them. About roughly $15,000 for each one total.
For each year?
Yeah, for each year. Just to say what, I will say that the recommendation was based on the fact that the cost of litigation exceeds.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
The
that.
cost of litigation, continuous litigation will actually exceed.
So is the settlement more than... Okay. So, but there's quite a few years involved there, so...
They're dropping, so it's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 are under appeal for each. 16, 17, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 are being dropped.
Oh.
They're only selling 17 and 18.
Okay, so it's...
I'm sorry, they're selling 18, 17 and 18.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, John. Anyone else from the public wishing to be heard, please come on up. That's it? Okay. Seeing none? Greg, thank you very much. Thanks for sticking around. Thank you, Greg.
Good night.
Thank you.
Let's see where we are right now. I'm sorry. All right. We have public hearing on pending ordinances and adoption of said. I just want to make I have one clarification for the Parks Field ordinance. We've changed field number 1, Memorial Park. It was going to be Panels Pavilion or something of that. It's now going to be James J. Panels Jr. Field. So it's really a minimal change to the ordinance, so we will not have to renotice this or anything like that. It's just we just have to tell the public. And I highly doubt anyone would object to that anyway. There wouldn't be an objection in the ordinance. So, with that, Barbara, shoot.
Okay, we have ordinance 18-19, an ordinance to adopt the revised drug-free zone and drug driving zone maps of the Borough of Maywood. Ordinance number 19-19, an ordinance to adopt park names of the Borough of Maywood and to amend all maps of the Borough of Maywood to reflect same. And ordinance 20-19, an ordinance to amend chapter 201-7E governing the fees of the special improvement districts.
At this time, I'd like to open the meeting to the public with that for any comments or questions with regard to the foregoing ordinances. Seeing none, I will close the meeting to the public, and I will ask for a motion for the adoption of the ordinances.
Motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
On roll call, Bennett?
Yes.
Boland?
Yes.
Holman?
Yes.
Trevino?
Yes.
Lindenau?
Yes.
Garofalo?
Yes.
Motion carries. Be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Maywood that ordinances 18-19, 19-19, and 20-19 are passed upon second and final reading, and that the Borough Clerk is hereby authorized and directed to advertise the same according to law.
Guys, just a thought would be, obviously we're going to be doing some signage in some of the parks, the ones that are appropriate. I thought maybe we could do we might want to do some dedication signs and maybe have some of the family members for each of the parks come by. I mean, it doesn't have to be the same day on all of them, but I know we have the panels this year. Maybe we could do a little sign and we'll get in touch with the families just to let you know when that day. I know we have to do the Gaffney Park. We haven't done that yet. Maybe do some signage. What do you guys think?
I'd love to do that. Yeah. That's
okay.
great.
Panels, we will get back to you and let you know and when the time will be, and we'll do some nice dedication with town. Okay? Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Correspondence and report of Borough Clerk.
Okay, just quick, October 15th is the deadline to register to vote for the general election, so if you're not yet registered, I will have the office open on the 15th until 9 p.m. to accept registration. And the only other thing I just wanted to touch on is beginning Friday, proposal packets will be available in the clerk's office. An advertisement will be in the Record on Friday for proposals for energy assessment services is what we touched on prior.
Okay.
So those will be due and back in my office on October 31st at 10 a.m.
Okay. All right, we have committee reports. Councilperson Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Leaf bag, done. Other than that, for the DPW, obviously soccer's keeping DPW very busy, so they're working on the three fields at Memorial and one at Maywood at School, keeping those ready. And then just recently in Nickerson Park, the DPW has done some tree trimming, but it's moved the shrubs around the gazebo. If you remember the gazebo, that there's in need of a lot of repairs. So they've moved the shrubs around the gazebo, and that'll help them obviously repair, give them the room to repair and paint the gazebo, and then planting will be done in the spring for anything that they need. And have something later for new business.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Bowling.
I will give a full report at the next meeting, but I do want to just mention one item. In the month of September, the borough and K-9 Remy was called out to help locate a missing woman with Alzheimer's in Bergenfield, and ultimately they did find her a mile away from her house, sitting in the front of an abandoned residence. So, we're lucky that we had that available, and they did find her, and she was taken for medical attention, but she's okay.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Ullman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of the green team, we only have one more meeting to hear me say come out to the Green Fair on November 2nd, and we have very specially designed T-shirts for the Maywood Green team that are for sale that you may have gotten a sneak preview at the Fall Fest. That was fantastic. Thank you. Those are available $10.
We should wear those next meeting.
I think that would be a great idea going into our inaugural Green Fair.
You know what? That's what we're going to do. We're going to have a new T-shirt every meeting until the end of the
T-shirt?
It's T-shirt.
That would be great. So we are looking forward to that, and that also is taking place the same day as the townwide shredded event. In addition, the community garden is now closed. There was the cleanup day on Saturday. I'm going to be doubling back a bit because I didn't make it to clean up our mayor and council garden bed and tidy it up a bit. So the community garden is closed. And in terms of the Board of Education, there is a public comment period. If anybody, encourage anybody to reach out to the New Jersey Board of Commissioner of Education if you wanted to have any input on the recommendation that came out of our feasibility study in terms of severing our relationship with Hackensack and continuing investment in East Rutherford. And that is it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Trevino.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add to the presentation earlier in the meeting with the from the Maywood Avenue School regarding the stigma-free and the Municipal Alliance. I just want to thank Mr. Jordan, Mr. Timmons, and Mr. Leo for their work, and definitely Lisa Shealy for all the work she puts into the Municipal Alliance as far as working with the school to put projects together, and also working with the administrative part of it with the funds and making sure that everything gets distributed properly. And we get a lot of great programs out of that. And that brings me to the next program, which is called Hidden in Plain Sight. It's going to be at Maywood Avenue School on Tuesday, November 12th. And we did have this program about 2 years ago, and I recommend anyone with children to go to it because it's a real eye-opener on stuff that children can buy to hide drugs, alcohol, and a lot of education on vaping and, how kids can get it, online and other ways that you won't think of without parents' help. So I would definitely recommend anyone to go to that meeting. That's all I have.
What was the date of that, Melissa?
That's November 12th. I can send you the flyers actually, and ask if you could get it on the newsletter too.
Yeah, let's get it on the newsletter and get it on the website too if you can. Can you remind?
Yeah, I'll pass on.
Yeah, please. Yeah, get that, if you can get it to Borough, sure. You can get it to Carol, okay? Good. Thanks. All right, sir. That's it?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Linden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Townwide garage sale, Saturday, October 19th, Sunday, October 20th. Registration is required by Wednesday, October 16th. $5 permit fee. The sale will be advertised in the Record, the R-Town, and the Community News. And there will be master lists available to pick up here at 15 Park once you are registered. And a map of the town so people know where all the garage sales are. It's usually a really good event every year. The mayor and I team up and go junking.
It was really just to go campaigning. It was going to be a campaign, but now it's actually going to be picking up junk this time.
For more information, or if you want to register for this, contact Lisa Seeley, 201-845-2900, extension 208. And also, I'd just like to mention that the Fall Festival was a really nice event this year. The weather was decent. It wasn't super hot and sunny, and everybody wasn't all sweaty, so it was good. It could have been a little warmer. But we had a really great turnout, a lot of good things going on up there. It's turned into a really nice event over the years, a real big town event, and happy to see it continuing. I think Roberta did a great job with setting it up and getting it all, the little pumpkin patch that she had set up for the kids was really cool. I thought that was nice. That's it. Go ahead.
Thanks, sir. Council President Garofalo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Definitely echo Mr. Lindenau's thoughts on the Fall Festival. It was fantastic. We even got, I think there was an extra bounce house this year, which my son was very excited about. Yeah, extra bounce houses. They're always popular. The next TANIC meeting is October 30th at 7. I think Maywood is going to be really at the top of the list for complaints. We had 3,134 complaints in the month of September.
We'll be happy to see you.
Yeah, they'll be like, what's going on in Maywood? So I'll find out more about that. They're actually going to do a revised plan for the new approach to the runway, so I'll have more information in November. Again, I just want to reiterate to people that our fire police and fire department are volunteer organizations, and they're always looking for able-bodied folks to come out and help out. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I want to echo the sentiments of Mr. Linden and Mr. Garofalo. The Fall Festival, as always, is a great community event. Roberta outdoes herself every year. It's a shame that the weather we had Saturday was not the weather we had on Sunday, but it was still a wonderful.
Better than rain.
Yeah, it was better than rain. The rain held out, and it was a wonderful day. Everybody enjoyed themselves. That's pretty much it. I want to, it's great having that many people in the room at one time. I know it was for a specific reason, but it would be great that we've had that all the time. That kind of participation. I've been looking for that for 9 years. I don't think we'll ever see it, but it's nice to have this meeting. It's an important place to be. I would say happy holidays to our Jewish residents, Jewish friends. Happy holidays to and with that, let's go with move forward. No action items. No resignations, no appointments, no council approval of the following. So we're going to do resolution by title.
Resolution 85-19, resolution authorizing and offering employment for crossing guards in the Borough of Maywood. Resolution 186-19, resolution authorizing the purchase and installation of the chipper body for use in the Borough of Maywood Department of Public Works. Resolution 187-19, resolution authorizing a shared service agreement between the Borough of Maywood and the Borough of Brandon for leaf collection and disposal. Resolution 188-19, acknowledgement of 2019 best practices inventory. Resolution 189-19, adoption of corrective action plan for the 2018 annual audit. Resolution 190-19, a resolution requesting permission for the dedication by writer for self-insurance programs, NJS 40A 10-1 Resolution 191-19, resolution authorizing the various departments in the Borough of Maywood to maintain petty cash funds as follows. Resolution 192-19, authorizing execution of an agreement with the Bergen County Department of Health Services for the bloodborne pathogens program for 2020 and 2021. Resolution 193-19, resolution approving settlement of tax appeal with Maywood Gardens in the Borough of Maywood, Bergen County, New Jersey. Resolution 194-19, resolution approving settlement of tax appeal with Maywood Sherwood Village in the Borough of Maywood, Bergen County, New Jersey.
Is there a motion to adopt the resolution? So moved. Is there a second? Second. Roll call.
On roll call, Bennett?
Discussion, sorry.
Sure.
Mr. Brown brings up a pretty good point with 193 and 194. Is there a reason why we omitted the amounts in those?
There's no particular reason. Usually the settlement numbers are provided. To be honest,
Should we amend the resolutions before voting on them? Does it matter?
It really doesn't matter. The reduction, so well, why don't you go to 15,000? I can go with the numbers.
Yeah, why don't you make a motion to accept them, to adopt them, accept them with the amendment of the actual legal numbers? And thereby we will be looking up. It won't be on the paper, but
What do you say?
yeah. All right, I'm just going to do that.
So I'd like to make a motion to amend 193 and 194 to include the amount of the settlement.
So there's a second on that? Second. We're all in favor? Yep.
Yes.
Any opposed? We're good. All right, so we're going to adopt with that. So Barbara, you get those numbers in the resolution? Yes. Yeah, okay, just get your users. Excellent. So which one would I be signing? Would you like to wait to sign those? Or
I'll have the orders.
Okay, all right. All right, so, anything else, then? Anything else on the further discussion?
On to resolution 188-19, the 2019 best practices inventory.
Yep.
So, first says whereas, it says the best practices inventory was reviewed and discussed by the mayor and council at a work session. Though we discussed it, the only thing we discussed is that there is one, and that there are questions that were answered. However, we do not have any information as to what the questions are answered. I know some things can get us what we answered to the question.
So we can pull that.
So we want to keep this resolution or pull the resolution.
Well, the only thing, with regard to this, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's two different, the questions aren't the same thing as the corrective action plan. The questions are what got us to that plan. The corrective action plan is what he went over with us. Yeah.
No, the best practice. The best practice.
Oh, the best practice, right?
Right.
That inventory, remember the screenshots of these to take for?
Yeah, all right, so, yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So let's pull that.
pull that, that's not due
We'll
until
just
the end
find
of the
it,
month.
right.
It's due at the end of the month, we have another meeting, so
So we can
pull it, we can put on next week.
Okay, you have to make sure that he gets this, whether it's a screenshot or print out.
There's got to be a way to get a PDF
It's
print out of it.
exactly, you print out the answers that you provided.
We'll figure out, sure, it's got somebody that's tech savvy. Okay. All right, good point. Sorry, I misunderstood.
Okay, so we have a motion.
We have motion
by
and
Council
second.
President,
We're done
and a
with,
second.
I assume we're done with discussion, so there's a roll call.
With the removal of 188.
With the removal, correct, of 188. Bennett,
Yes.
Solon,
Yes.
Ullman,
Yes.
Trevino,
Yes.
Lizardell,
Yes.
Garafalo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, no, ordinances, we're having this, are you
I
on?
don't know,
We can make.
it's just probably gone over my report, but I do have a sort of request from Mr. Newman for anyone who has a liaison to sports programming, needs to get a date to shut off all the fun water, and I don't know if we have a date yet. He has an anticipated date to shut off the bathrooms and concession stands so they're properly cleaned, but
Okay, so you're saying so we can get that information to the organization?
yes, yes, to the organization, because he needs to establish an end date for all sports so that they can,
Well, yeah, well, soccer runs into mid-November.
it's mid-November. Right, so he's anticipating mid-November, but if,
He wants an end date.
reach out to,
I think that Lisa would be the person.
Yeah, correct, that makes sense. That he should put him in touch with, just tell him to talk to Lisa, and she'll get that information. If she doesn't have it readily available, call the soccer, folks
Yeah.
and get it from, I just, that's Judy Ben's. All right, any other new business?
Yeah, sorry.
Sure.
And maybe I'll need to reach out to Rich on this, offline as the liaison to the police department. However, I didn't want to keep Lieutenant Worrell here any longer than he already was. A resident had reached out to me who lives at the intersection of Howcroft and Maywood Ave, and actually sent me pictures of 3 accidents that have occurred at that intersection since June, so I wanted to see. I remember when we were doing the thing by the Fit and Fashion and by the uptown, that he was able to run a report of accidents that had been, at a specific location. So I just wanted to see if since the time when the gym was open and that gate was left open, if we could run a report on how many accidents there have been there. I don't know, maybe the county, you don't need to get involved with the county road, but it's very,
I think we
very concerned.
we definitely monitor that. We have that information. I don't think we can take count.
It might be a place where we put in a left turn onto Maywood Avenue.
No left, only right. So then they
Coming out of the gym.
Coming out of the gym.
I meant just get them involved with any mitigation to the problem. Certainly, Lieutenant Worrell, I trust them to get the reporting. But based on what the reporting says, they may need to be part of the solution as a county road, I'm guessing. That was it. Probably
yeah, we are the ones who control that area. We're the ones who kept it open, the council.
Perfect.
So it's within our purview, whatever needs to go forward with that. But before we go any further with that, we need to get that information on, Mark, could you, or Rich, one of the two, whoever, if you want to reach out to the chief.
Oh, we checked it.
Okay, that's fine, great, thank you. Any other?
I have one, that was new.
That was new, okay.
Mine is sort of both-ish new and old business, I guess. So I also had a resident reach out through electronic means to ask about, there's a conversation about Maywood fining the owner of the bakery $1,000 a day, and he wanted to know if that was true or not.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is true. It is indeed true.
And his follow-up question was, when will construction begin? And I think the answer is, though, October 15th. If he doesn't start construction by October 15th, right, it'll be then $1,000 fine per day.
Yes, no work for them.
Yeah. I can't speak for this individual, the owner, and I don't know what's going on there. I just know that there was an approval given for that work. We actually, as a council, we decided to hold off on paving
that one section because there's excavation going on in the basement of that thing. We didn't want to mess up our paving with having big, roll-up dumpsters. We didn't want to ruin the thing, so we chose to hold off on it. So there's a section there that's not paved because of that. I mean, this is a complete inconvenience to the town. It's a complete eyesore there.
There's pigeons roosting in the bakery right now. There's pigeons.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's fire hazard. I mean, there's no two ways around it. You have a wall. It is what it is, but it has to be taken care of. We can bend, but we can't bend too far. You know what I'm saying?
Amen.
As with our new ordinance about the appearance of our downtown.
Yeah.
I think that's the right thing to do.
That's the jewel of this community, that downtown, that and the library. And presumably we're going to be bringing more people to town, to the station, and I don't want to have to look at that. They're going to be driving these Lexuses, these Castles, so apparently they're going to be well-to-do people. We want to give them a nice account of our town here, please.
Letters have gone out.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
Letters have gone out to the vacant storefronts, notifying them of the new ordinance. So November 1st, Jim was going to start going to them, giving them some time to, some of them turn on the power and stuff like that.
Okay.
They're doing work at the Oak.
Conversely to the...
It looks nice. It's starting to look nice now. And the pizza place looks great.
Has anybody gone to the
I walked in there. I haven't eaten there.
Have you eaten it? Oh, good. Well, I wouldn't expect you to say it was bad. It was on record.
On record, it was both good because I did actually enjoy it.
Oh, good. Excellent. I have to go there. I'm trying to go there, and I haven't gotten over there yet. All right, that's new business. Do we have old business?
I do have old business from our last meeting where, Mr. Mayor, you brought up, President has also brought to you about the parking sign. So maybe I should have keeping how it was here. But I did have a conversation with him, and his first, sort of comment, and as we were talking, was the tendency to say the simplest of signs tends to be better. The more things we add to a sign, the more confusing it is for people to park. If you've ever been in New York City, it takes me 20 minutes to read a sign sometimes. So I do understand that. And in our conversation, I also, because it was during the school, you were saying, I remember it was like whether or not to put on the sign during school session or something, right?
When school session.
When school session, sorry, thank you. But I was also thinking in that same vein, the very fact that school is not in session has already alleviated some of that traffic and some of that parking. So, I mean, whether adding the when school's in session, to me, they can already park on the other side, so there's not really any parking on the side that you can park continuously without time restriction because school is not in session. There's available parking. He said he was on thinking, obviously, of excuse me, less wording is better, but he said that could be something certainly that if we do decide to do that.
Okay. Good point. All right. Further old business? No, I don't. The only thing I have, is just I'd like to. I don't know if we talked about it. We did talk about it. I don't know if we have a definite. I'd like to move forward with the stations. So I'd like to have that on for the next meeting, ready with the resolution to have to enter into the agreement. If we're all okay with it. I mean, we already said that basically, but I want to get it on the record so that we can have the work move forward.
Double
Can we
board.
clarify what deal we're going with?
That's the point.
the
I think.
Well, I mean, should we,
I think
reach out to our DPW superintendent first? It's a $15,000 difference versus
Well,
having them do everything or have us prep the site and they install.
You know,
So if our DPW superintendent feels that he's got comfortable enough with prepping that area, getting, whatever they need done, I think it's something we should look at.
If I could suggest that we probably want to get a specification of what they require, because it's
I would agree with that. Well, it's the box, it's the bollard, it's the I'm not sure how we can do that.
Yeah, I mean,
You should ask Gary.
what I don't want to do is this, and I think this, I don't want to do a situation where, or we use our guys to get certain things done, and because then you run into a situation where the other side says, well, they didn't do this correctly, and that's the problem. I know either one side does all of that stuff, or that's it. One side has to do it. You know what I'm saying? Because what I don't want to see is somewhere down the line, well, your guys didn't trench it correctly, or your guys didn't do that, and that's why the problem is.
Yeah. Maybe what you want to do tonight is authorize the borough engineer to review it. And then I can make this.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Might be easy.
But to your question before was,
Mine was more about the 3-year and the 5-year.
yeah, I think 5-year would probably be more. I mean, if it's a savings, you might as well go 5 years. We're not going to take that thing and get it out of here in 3 years or 5 years. It's going to be here, obviously, in one shape or form. So we might as well stick with 5 years. It's a little bit of a
Do we have an exact spot? I know we want to put it behind Maywood Inn. Is there an exact spot that we're going to take out?
She showed me it. It's, where the pole, there's a pole there.
Okay.
It's literally right next to that pole. So the idea was to be as close to that electric source.
So that's all parallel for
What's that?
the electric one, like the
Yeah.
big run too.
Yeah.
Is that where you guys want to put it?
I don't know, I mean,
Yeah, we just have to be in the resolution. If you're going to designate spots.
do we think that it should be behind Maywood Inn? Should it be on Pleasant Avenue? What does everybody think about where it should be?
I think parking is a priority on Pleasant Avenue as it is. Take away 2 spots that maybe will get used all the time, but maybe will be empty a lot of the times.
Well, but what I love about it, and I agree, I think, because the app, they're going to find a
You're
spot.
going to take it right to it.
Right?
Yep.
And that parking lot behind Maywood Inn, it's not bad parking.
No.
It's just people don't really know about it.
And
That lot needs to be repaired, though. That lot is in bad shape.
it needs a little attention. It needs a little attention, I agree. But my thing is I'm against taking away a premium spot on the avenue.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So unless we can put it behind Maywood Inn or, the bank parking lot, that's private property, isn't it?
Yeah.
We couldn't put it there.
I wasn't sure until this, I was saying, what kind of use is this going to get in back there? But he explained that all the way.
Well,
We can put that anywhere in the back of the main.
What about the lot, for the old hardware store? That's a bar lot too, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's those spots are.
They're small. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So then maybe behind the
Yeah.
so then, like Matt said, this app is going to direct you right to it, so.
And is this, what I forgot to ask about it, or maybe you know, is this a situation where you can't go in that? Those spots are not already marked.
We would have to, our police would have to ticket them.
Yeah.
We probably have to pass.
I do with the resolution is that the resolution restricts those spots to only those who have electric cars.
It'd have to be an
Yeah.
ordinance. We'd have to pass
That's
it.
fine. Yeah, so we'd have to do, because in order to.
I don't know if that's an ordinance.
Well, in order to write a ticket, you have to have an ordinance.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. What? Yeah, well, I
I'm
think.
just explaining to the lawyer that we do need an ordinance.
Well, here's the thing. We have to restrict it because we won't, if there's an instance where you can't get there and you look to charge and you can't park because someone else is there, we just lost money. And we lost the ability to defer some of this cost. So that has to always be, only park.
Tom can't park, Kate.
Yeah.
I can't park my big
8 miles per gallon.
So we need to have that, we need to get an ordinance right away on that one. All right, so that's a question, and then that's something we need to do. We need to speak. Yes, we are authorizing the engineer to review specs. We'll do that by voice.
Aye.
All right. We're okay with that?
Aye.
Yeah, so we review the specs on that, and I would be really surprised if anybody, the skill level that this would take in the DPW. I mean, even if you told me that we have the manpower, I still don't want
For
to be...
$15,000?
I still don't want to be in that situation where they're blaming us for something. If something goes wrong, they're saying that, you didn't do it right. I don't want to be in that situation. But what we do need to do is have Roberta reach out to the Chamber of Commerce and see what level of interest they would have with the SID. There's plenty of money in the SID that we can get something out of that to defer the cost, and then at that point they could do their free advertising all to their heart's desire. I mean, it doesn't have to just be food. It could be like dry
Should the money from the ROI go back into the SID? Would that be an incentive?
No, I would say no, only because it's not, they're not, well, I take that back. If they outlay a certain amount of money, then yes, because they've outlaid the money, so then the money coming back would be, their ROI would be, they'd have an interest on the return on their investment. So if we want to say that some of the profits, as soon as you get for every dollar, if they put in half, 50 goes there, 50 goes to the other person that put it in on the bill. Until money is paid. Until it's paid.
But only for almost like a...
Or what we could
I'm not
do...
going to say the word.
Yeah. We could also do a situation where if they're paying for this, then next year we could waive, I mean, fees for the SID to be waived or something. I mean, it doesn't have to be a dollar figure thrown in there. There's all different creative ways to work that, but we would need to first find out if they're willing to spend that money on it.
They're willing, yeah, they're getting on board with it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to have George meet to see if he would come to one of our...
I worry about the timeline, because he said something about the timeline seems to be quick with this grant, that maybe we need to get moving on this.
That's why
We've
I
had
put
this
this up.
approved for a while.
I think we ought to go as quick as possible. I really do.
Well, let's have Greg review it, hopefully have an answer for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Whether the SID is not get computed or not, doesn't change the fact that we need a proposal.
No, not at all.
Resolution approval.
The only thing that with the SID is if they're willing to put some money in, then we just have to outlay less money. Or we get outlay it out front, and if they decide that they're going to take some money and give it back to the town. However we do it.
Yeah, I would say let them get involved later, because that's going to hold the whole process.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. All right, well then let's have this on, do everything we need to do to make sure that this is on for the next meeting, and move forward. You good with that?
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, that's all I have for old business. If anybody else has anything, if not, you don't have a closed session.
Let's do John.
Second.
This is a marathon, this one, guys. I mean, we've been here a year, but that's usually because it's closed.